Everyone's here. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Select Board meeting. Today is the 9th of March, 2021, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Love you too. You can come in later.
They can do the Pledge of Allegiance, Matt. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all. Ed, would you like to read the preamble there?
Sure. Thank you. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 and March 23rd order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Town of Southampton Select Board is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to, view this meeting while in progress may do so by go to zoom.us/join, hit join a meeting in the top right of the screen, type in the meeting ID of 844-6158-7656, password 869291, hit join. Please be sure to mute your device when joining in. Note, to join in video meeting with cell phone, you will need to download the Zoom app from the App Store. Call-in telephone number is 646-558-8656. By watching public access TV Charter Spectrum Channel 191, in person and a comment at Select Board meetings will be suspended until further notice. If you email a written public comment before the scheduled Select Board meeting, it will be read at that Select Board meeting. If you email a written public comment after viewing something in a live televised Select Board meeting, it will be read at the next Select Board meeting. Please send your public comments via email to selectmen@townofsouthampton.org. Please note that all public comments must be within the requirements of the policy on public comments listed in the open time for the public on the Select Board agenda.
Thanks very much, Ed. Before we start with the agenda, does anybody have any announcements or words of gratitude, gems of wisdom? I would like to just thank the Finance Committee, who's doing a phenomenal job, meeting often and hearing from all the departments, and I really appreciate all they're doing. I've joined a couple of the meetings, and I think they're doing a phenomenal job. So thank you very much. Ken, you're with us, the chair. I want to say thanks. I
do too. I feel the same way. Thank you, Ken and team.
Great. Yep. Then we'll go right into the no public hearings. So we'll go into the appointments and resignations. The first is resignation, Corey Breasted, Hampshire Regional School Committee. We got a nice letter from him. I think he served for a couple of terms, and his resignation is effective February 22nd, 2021. Is there a motion to accept his resignation?
I'll move to accept.
Francine, is there a second?
Second.
Matt, any discussion, questions?
He is a valued member of both the community and that committee. And he has been on there a while, and it's disappointing. I mean,
yeah, it sure is. Well, I just want to thank him for his service to the committee. Any other comments? If not, all in favor of accepting his resignation?
Fishman, aye.
Fowles, aye.
Roland, aye.
Roden, aye. Next, just going to ask, it's appointment to the Housing Authority, appointment to expire next annual town election, which is, it says here 5/18/21. Is that been decided? Is that the official date of the town election?
I mean, that would be the normal date for it, correct?
Okay, that'd be the normal date. Okay. And we got an email today about this. I had seen this in the packet. Was there a problem with the initial one, or was it temporary and then?
No, it was temporary. Lucy initialed it this afternoon, so
Okay,
we're good to go.
all right. At any rate, Sierra Simmons, Housing Authority appointment to expire at the next annual town election, 5/18/21. Is there a motion to accept her appointment to the Housing Authority?
So moved.
Chris?
Second.
And Matt. Does anybody have the paperwork handy? Would you like to, I don't believe she's here, so does anybody want to speak to this appointment? I know Jim is the chair of the committee. Janet, do you have that handy?
I don't have the paperwork in front of me, but I can say that Sarah's been attending the last couple months, waiting for, we thought the appointment by the state, because there's always a state-appointed position. Then when Chuck stepped down, it opened up this spot, and we thought if the state wouldn't move faster, then at least we would get her on. And I believe she's pulled papers today to run for the 5-year term starting, after the election in May. So
Oh, good. Okay, that's what
a lot of value, and she has some great grant experience, and we're looking, she's been very informed, even though she hasn't been a member to date. She's been attending, so.
Great. Thanks. So does that round out the committee? How many people are on the committee?
We still have the state-appointed position that hasn't been filled. So there are 4 members of the committee right now.
Okay, one vacancy after this?
Yes, which is a state-appointed vacancy. So
Right.
I'm going to be running for a 1-term, and Sierra's going to run for the 5-year term. So we'll have 4 out of 5, which is great.
Okay, that's good. Any other comments, questions about Sierra Simmons' appointment?
Yeah, I've met her occasionally, and I was trying to corral her in for the grant committee, but not yet. She's going to take one committee at a time, but she definitely has some grant experience, and she'd be a good addition for there too.
Right.
And so she'll just hopefully get herself connected with Lucy and get sworn in and be ready to fly.
Excellent. All in favor?
Fishman, aye.
What, Ed? Did someone
No,
say?
I was just going to comment and read what she had under education experience, because I had the paperwork in front of her, and one of the comments was the first thing on her paperwork is grant writing, then research, then project management experience, and then working with construction contractors and writing in general.
That sounds good.
It sounds like she's qualified for a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, that's great that she's stepping up for housing. So all in favor?
Fishman, aye.
Fowles eye.
Poland, aye.
And Groden, aye. Thanks. The next appointment, this time of year, we make an appointment to the Board of Registrars. Ed has written to both party chairs and asked for nominees. And I believe that we are making an appointment to take effect April 1, 2021, and the term expires March 31st, 2024. And I do believe there are a couple of nominees.
Yes, the Democratic Party nominated Elaine Buckley as their nominee, and the Republican Party sent in a list of 3, but 2 really aren't eligible because one already holds the Board of Registrars office. His term hasn't expired, and the other is an officer in the Republican committee. So that would leave Patricia Izat of 10 Kingsbury Lane as their choice to fill the vacant position. And I did receive an email from Elaine Buckley today, as she was going to be traveling to the Cape and not know if she'd be able to sign in tonight. So It just says, hello, Ed Gibson. I am applying to fill a vacancy on the Registrar of Voters. I am leaving for the Cape this morning, and I'm not sure I will be able to connect with the Zoom meeting. I will try. In any case, here's a little information about me. I have been a resident of Southampton since 1983. My two sons attended Southampton schools. For several years, I was a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I also taught high school history and civics. I am currently a member of the Easthampton Hub of Medicare for All. I am interested in this position as I believe voting and the accuracy of records is crucial to the democratic process. I would like to do my part to ensure that Southampton's records are accurate. I believe in the importance of civic involvement, and I would like to do my part. I will do my best to connect with the Zoom meeting. Thank you for your consideration, Elaine Buckley.
Okay, great. Well, it looks, I don't see her on the call, so it looks like that on the road, she's had some difficulty signing in. Can anyone here, is anybody able to speak to either of the nominees?
Hi, I'm Janet Kane, 83 Glendale Road, Chair of the Southampton Democratic Town Committee. I mean, Elaine has been an active individual in town and in politics. And I know is very concerned about voter registration and making sure that we get people registered that are moving into town as we have elections coming up. And we unanimously recommended her from the town committee to be our representative. So I think she said more than I could ever say. I think I learned a little bit more about her from her paragraph. And, you know, I would hope you could seriously consider her.
Okay. I think right now the composition of the committee includes Sylvia, who is on the committee, as well as William Waldron, as Mark Perez mentioned in the letter, and then the town clerk, who is independent. So there is representation from each party. I think that's the main thing. You can't have an imbalance unless it's, I mean, there has to be at least, you can't be too top heavy on one side. So, so either one of them would fit the sort of requirement of the Board of Registrars. Can I have a nomination perhaps from somebody on the select board for filling the seat on the Board of Registrars?
I'll nominate Elaine Buckley to fill the seat.
Okay. Is there a second for that?
I'll second.
Any further comment? Was there anything else in the letter, the other nominee, in terms of background or anything? It was just a letter of recommendation? Ed, on the Patricia Isaac?
No,
Okay.
that was it. It says, we are recommending Elaine Buckley as a Democrat for the town for the 3-year opening and the Board of Registrars. And then
Okay.
it's got her name and her address and her phone number.
Okay. Any other nominations from the floor? Okay, then we have a motion and second to appoint Elaine Buckley as the appointment for the Board of Registrars. All those in favor?
Tishman, aye.
Fowles eye.
Roland,
And Groden, aye. Okay, so we have two other appointments. These are two people who have stepped up to be alternate members of the Council on Aging. They both passed in paperwork. Sylvia is with us today, so I'll start and just ask Sylvia to just say a little bit about yourself and what makes you interested in being an alternate for the COA.
Well, I'm of age now, so why not? I've been in Southampton and Fulmer Road for 45 years. My children attended the Larrabee School, the Norrie School, and they graduated from Hampshire Regional. I am a retired K-12 educator. I'm currently the chair of the Board of Registrars. Finished my first year, and I'm in for the rest of my time. I finally decided to get involved after all these years. Now that I'm not working, I got the time, I got the interest. I've always been interested in Southampton, of course. I've been here forever, but didn't quite have the time to get involved. So I'm here.
That's great. Thank you very much. Jonathan J. Is not here. He did say he's not able to come, but he did pass in his paperwork. Jonathan is a retired attorney. Does anybody have the paperwork in front of them on his volunteer appointment? If not, I can bring it up in the packet. You want to read that, Ed, for us? Okay.
Sure. Applying for the alternate member on the Board of Council on Aging, and he, under please list any education, experience, professional achievement, skills, or special interest that he has. He's a retired attorney. He's a former member of the Governing Council for the 5 College Learning in Retirement.
That's great.
And he is a registered voter in the town of Southampton.
Great. Now, Janet, could you just say a word about the alternate members? There are 2 on the board, right, according to the bylaws?
Yes, so the alternate members are active members of the board.
Mm-hmm.
They are non-voting members unless we don't have a quorum, so they can create the quorum.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a while since we've had alternates. We've had a full board, but it's been a while since we've had alternates. So I'm really excited that Jonathan and Sylvia both expressed their interest. I think it's great to have new, fresh ideas to the group and have a changeover is often, to get those new, fresh ideas. And I welcome both Sylvia and Jonathan to our board.
Great. And they were recommended by the Council on Aging. So is there a motion then to appoint Jonathan J. and Sylvia Galvin to the COA alternate board?
Yes, I move to nominate Jonathan J. and Sylvia Galvan to the council as alternates to the Council on Aging Board.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Francine and then Chris. Any further questions, comments? All in favor?
Tishman, aye.
Fowles eye.
Roden, aye.
Roland, I sorry.
That's okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sylvia, for stepping up. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay. So next we're going to have the select board reports. Who would like to start?
Madam Chair,
Pardon? Yeah.
this is Ken.
Hi, Ken.
I was on mute when you when you thanked the committee, and I I couldn't get back in quick enough. I just don't want to come across as being an ingrate.
We would never think that.
I will pass that along to the committee. We have each of us been pulling on our oar, if you will, and I'm happy with the progress, and I'm sure they are as well. We've scheduled 2 more meetings, one on the 15th and one on the 17th for wrap up on our visitations, and we'll be going on from there. So, but again, I thank you very much for your acknowledgement and your thanks, and we'll continue to do our best.
Thank you very much. Okay, so actually the FY22 budget is on the agenda for a little bit later on, so we'll kind of catch up on where things are at. So who would like to start with their select board reports?
Okay. I'll
Okay,
go.
thanks.
Yes. Sometimes I have very little and sometimes I have a lot. This is one of those busy times, so bear with me. I'll start with the Personnel Policies and Procedures Board. They met on February 25th. At that meeting, members of both the Council on Aging Board and the Board of Assessors were in attendance to request that the PQB rescore the positions for the director and the principal assessor respectively. It was determined that the PQB would meet again before its next scheduled meeting to review and rescore the revised job descriptions for both positions. That session has now been scheduled for this Thursday, March 11th at 6 p.m. The board then discussed the Standard Insurance Company short-term disability policy, which could replace the current short-term disability benefit provided by the town. In a 3-to-1 vote, the PQB voted to recommend to the select board that it continue the short-term disability policy as it is, with the town paying 75% of the wages for up to 26 weeks for persons out on short-term disability rather than purchase commercial insurance. That was their recommendation. The PQB will update the existing salary scale that was set in 2017 for non-union employees at a rate of 2% per year since that time, for consideration by the Finance Committee and the Select Board. The Select Board and Finance Committees are encouraged to consider funding increases in fiscal year 22, in the fiscal year 22 budget commensurate with that scale. The PQB also voted to approve the COVID-19 leave policy, which would allow employees who are exposed to or in close contact with individuals who have or are suspected of having COVID to take 10 days of leave without impacting the sick time allocated for their positions. The PQB also voted to correct the pay range for the assistant to the highway superintendent at a new range of $11.54 to $17.15 per hour. The original proposed range by the highway superintendent was $16.82 to $26.91. So we have this discrepancy with what scales people are using to put forward PCFs and PRFs. And so hopefully with this in the short term, we'll have that resolved with the new scale. And then finally, ongoing discussion of current PQB rules and regulations for the purpose of clarification and updating. Our next regularly scheduled meeting is March 25th, and that's in addition to the special meeting that we're having this Thursday. All right, the next committee is the Community Preservation, and that met on February 3rd. I was not present. I was at the FinCom meeting, but I did get the notes of that meeting for this report. The CPC approved the contingent expenditure of $50,000 from its undesignated account to be used as a match for a grant for the next phase of the Manhan Meadows Sanctuary. It is expected that that amount, including what they anticipate to get in grant funds, will total the cost of the project at $98,755. The CPC is continuing its work on an educational brochure for town residents regarding the importance and the value of the Barnes Aquifer. And then finally, the committee discussed the Old Town Hall envelope study and the need to stabilize the exterior to prevent further deterioration. The committee is questioning whether or not the CPC is an appropriate source of funds for that purpose, or should this be a capital improvement item. This will be discussed further at a subsequent meeting, which is scheduled for April 7th at 5:30. And then getting on to the Finance Committee. Since our last regular select board meeting, the Finance Committee has met 4 times, twice per week, to meet with department heads to discuss their fiscal year 22 budget presentations, in which they propose 2 budget scenarios: level funding / level service based on fiscal year 21, and a second budget that includes a wage increase and a prioritized list of needed items over and above fiscal year 21. To date, meetings have been held with the heads of the assessors, Board of Health, Building Inspector, Council on Aging, Fire Department, Highway Department, Library, Police Department, Town Administrator, Town Clerk, Treasurer, Collector, Tree Warden, and they had also met with Ed on employee, Ed and Jen on employee benefits. So you can see they've been very busy. There are a couple more departments to be scheduled in the next week. Smaller departments or committees that are remaining who do not choose to meet will be budgeted at their fiscal 21 rate unless they otherwise indicate. So you can see from the rigorous schedule that they've been maintaining is that they're on track to make their recommended budget on time, as we mentioned earlier, sometime around April 1st. The next one, the Finance Committee reviewed and approved its fiscal year 20 annual report submission. They are also reviewing and perhaps revising draft bylaws for their committee, and their next regular meeting is scheduled for April 12th. And finally, the next one is the Bylaws Committee. There are a number of drafts on tonight's agenda that we've discussed before, and hopefully we'll move on this evening. We expect that we will conduct a public hearing on nuisance and solicitation at some time in the future. The committee will meet again on March 18th at 1:30 to finalize their draft on solicitation. And then finally, the committee that I'm assigned to is the Zoning Board, and they have not had any meetings scheduled. That's it.
Oh, you've been busy too, Francine. Thank you. Any questions for Francine? Francine, I have one question. Did the Historical Commission, the discussion at CPC about the envelope study, there was no request by the Historical Commission or anybody else for CPC funds. It was just a general discussion about what's appropriate?
Since I wasn't there, I'm just working off their notes. There was no indication that it came up from that perspective.
Because the way we left it last meeting was that there was a committee that got formed to go ahead and discuss this further. So my sense is that no request for CPC money was requested. It was just a general discussion. Were you there, Cindy? Okay. So was that the case? There was just a general discussion about?
It was just a report on the report and a general discussion, no specific budget request at this time.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Francine. Matt or Chris, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Trying to figure out where to start, but I'll start with a couple of easy ones. The Master Plan Committee did have a meeting and reviewed the draft report that we had gotten back from PVPC that was pulling together all the results of our survey and kind of making a bit of a plan forward for us. We provided some comment and feedback back to them, specifically to Ken, because we would like it to be a little bit more reader friendly, I guess, with a bit more broken up in terms of all the various charts so that it's really more understandable, but also something that really gives us more of a listing of resources and possible steps to undertake if we were to embark on any of the top 3 or 4 or 5 priorities that were listed that came out of the survey. So we were lacking on that kind of resource base and real steps for an action plan. So we've asked him to work on that, and we're hoping for that revision, a final revision before the end of the month, and then we should be ready to make that more public and make that an action plan that we can all work from. So again, not a 100-page document, but maybe a 25-page document, I hope. So there was that. So we are not meeting again until we get that report. Once we know that, we'll schedule a meeting. The Board of Assessors just met right before this meeting, and basically routine business, typical kinds of things of abatements and looking at some chapter land issues, et cetera. So nothing out of the ordinary there. The Conservation Commission met March 1st, and again, had quite a few items, basically looking at a lot of their stewardship projects, talking about what's going to be happening with Manhattan Meadows and the beginning of that process. I know right now there's been a draft bid that's been put together that I think they're reviewing with Ed to see if it's ready to roll and be put out officially for bid to start the work on Manhattan Meadows. We had some discussion with the Alice Brown property and some of the property owners that were nearby that were wondering what was going to be happening with the forest cutting plan that's been developed. As you all may know, the Alice Brown property over on Pleasant Street is one of the conservation town-owned properties, and it's one that has been pretty much it's been very used, but yet it hasn't been really developed in terms of trails, in terms of really signage, all of those kinds of things that we would really want to have in place. And as one of our properties for Concom, it needs to have basically a forest cutting plan every 10 years. It's under a forest management plan. And so Concom had engaged our local forester to go in and do a forest cutting plan. That has now been developed and has been approved by the state forester. So that will be also be going out to bid. They will do that directly out to bid to find companies that would come in and cut down the selected trees, some of the diseased trees, some of the ones that are really, again, dangerous in terms of their position, but also being very aware of creating and maintaining wildlife habitat, taking a look at where some of the trails might be, and just noting exactly what has to be done. Some of the, a couple of the property owners were just concerned about their privacy, wanted to know a little bit more about that. So they were there for the discussion, and I think they had their questions answered. But basically, the Concom has got to do what it needs to do to have the forest cutting plan in place and make it a more safe and enjoyable opportunity for hiking and recreation for all the citizens of town. And so they're going to be proceeding with that. And that's what's on their list. And then the next one that will be coming along just to develop in town a little bit more is one called the Lyman Family Conservation Area, which is over off of, it's right off of Route 10, across from the golf club, which hardly anybody knows much about. So it's one that will be probably being surveyed out more clearly, and something that they'll be working on during the year. So every year to try and develop one more property so that it can be really put into use for hiking and recreation in town. Probably the biggest thing we just need to hear on is, if you remember the Wetlands Bylaw that passed at the special town meeting, the AG had a few comments, and I know those had to go to KP Law, so I don't know if we have any update from them or if we can get something. We're hoping to act on a couple of the provisions within the Wetlands Bylaw on a couple of matters that are coming up. So if we could possibly get KP Law to finish off on that one, we'd really appreciate that a lot. The grant, ad hoc grant committee is going to be meeting tomorrow. We're going to be talking about this One Stop for Growth grant. This is a new state program that allows you to put in one application for 10 different government agencies, and focusing a lot on construction kinds of things, water, sewer, housing in particular. Last meeting we had representatives from planning, housing, and highway there, and this time we're having a couple more folks. I know we've invited police and fire there because we do want to also talk a little bit about the possible idea of the public safety complex and see whether there's any feasibility studies or anything else that needs to be done to get moving on that a bit. So we'll be meeting tomorrow with just a few people to sort of brainstorm that one. And then tomorrow night is the ad hoc tech committee, and they'll be doing their next phase of their planning on the various tech issues. I think that's it for now.
Thank you very much, Chris. Any questions for Chris? Okay, Matt, any report from the schools?
Yes. Specifically, Norris is following state guidelines to get more students back in. We're going to try to do it at 6 feet, but if we can't, the state has kind of indicated that we must go back, and that remote days are not going to count towards education. So we need to get everybody back in school. So that's what we're working towards.
Mm-hmm. Anything on the superintendent? Anything new?
Well, we as you saw, or hopefully you saw, we put out 4 candidates that made it to the final round. And so those are heading towards the school committees to consider and evaluate. And you know, that was the charge of the superintendent hiring committee, was to kind of narrow down the field for the school committees to vote on and decide. And they're working through that process now.
Is their goal to identify 2 candidates for the sort of, I know in the last go round, they had 2, and then they had a public meeting where they presented both candidates and had them answer questions and then voted in favor of one of them. Is that the plan, is to narrow it down to 2?
Tammy, I don't know if Tammy's able to speak to this. I'm not, I don't know the exact process. I mean, I know that all four of these candidates are going through like a full round of interviews and processes.
Oh, really? Okay.
With visits and interviews and reference checks and the whole
Yes,
nine.
actually, they've set it up. Tammy Walunas, 298 College Highway, Southampton, representative for the Hampshire Regional School Committee. They have it narrowed down to the four. They're four really good candidates,
Great.
and they have set it up so that two are going to be done on one night and two will be done on another night. That we will be evaluating. So that's the 23rd and the 24th. I believe they are public, so that people can hear the questions. They won't be able to ask anything, but they can at least hear. And if people are interested in that, they should look. It'll be under the Hampshire Regional School Committee tag for on meetings and things on the town website. And idea is to hopefully get somebody qualified that meets all of our needs and get one person in there and have that done hopefully by the end of March so that we can start negotiating and everything in April.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, everything from here on out is public with that.
Yes.
Okay, good. Any questions for Matt? I will report on a couple of committees. The Council on Aging met last week. They approved CARES Act items, reception desk, chair with a shield, the awning, electric heaters for outdoor activities. They continue to have several ongoing programs on Zoom. The Friends of the Council on Aging is planning a silent auction for May. The Good Eats to Go meal program distributed 31 meals out of a total of 50. Southampton's in discussion with the Westhampton Council on Aging regarding the coordination of van transportation, which was suggested by the Franklin Regional Transit Authority, who oversees the van transportation. FY22 COA budget was requested and completed. They submitted it to the town administrator and to the Finance Committee. As previously mentioned, they did ask for the Council on Aging Director position to be more accurately reflect the full range of duties and responsibilities of the position. They requested a rescore by PQB. Council on Aging personnel and volunteers who were contacting seniors to assist with COVID-19 vaccine signups. They've all have CORI clearances. The Council on Aging completed their annual report, and like we talked about before, they recommended the alternate members that we just appointed. So that's kind of it on the Council on Aging, and the Board of Health also met very briefly, just really for the purpose of signing the budget, and they also had a meeting with the Finance Committee. Their concern was the 4% department cuts that have not been shifted in terms of lines, so their expense line is in the negative right now. I did write a letter to the folks on the Council on the Board of Health, asking them to provide more information on the Sharps program with data in terms of the numbers of Sharps containers that have been distributed, returned, how many total residents have been benefiting from this program and that sort of thing, and also more information on the mosquito program in terms of who's overseeing it, what are we getting for reports, all that sort of thing. Southampton originally received 9147 from DPH, which was administered by Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. This was the first money that came into the, the town for COVID relief. We were notified that we are receiving an additional 3238 in funding from DPH. I was waiting to hear from the Board of Health on how these funds will be budgeted. Thus far, 1,400 was towards IT, software, laptop, signs, 500. The majority, 5,600, has been spent on wages. So that's kind of it from the Board of Health. And from the Open Space Review Committee, I will defer to Cindy Palmer, who is going to give us a report on the that committee in a little bit. I just want to mention to folks that I did complete the annual report and sent it off to Ed, and I also wrote an article for the reminder. the Westfield paper because they were doing a 2022 outlook and asked all the towns to submit articles. So that was already published, I think, last week, week before. Any questions? All righty. Then we will have the town administrator report. Okay, Ed?
Sure. Let's see. Start off with town meeting, and just to let you know, it'll probably be necessary to hold the annual town meeting outside again this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I have spoken with Jerry Swanson, Health Director, and it is very unlikely to have 140 to 160 people inside the cafetorium at Norris School in May and meet the safety restrictions at this point. We would plan to use the LaBrief Field again this year, as we have utilized it twice last year and already have some good plans for its utilization as a town meeting site. The only thing that would change the date of the town meeting, because it's usually on a Tuesday evening. So that's one thing to keep in the back of your minds. Then just to let you know, the highway department had ordered the emergency generator for the highway garage, which is to be purchased for the kids, which were approved in the phase 2. And originally wasn't going to be ordered because of the fact that originally we thought that everything had to be here by December 30th, 2020. And with the lead time with the generator, that wasn't going to be possible, but now it is. So they have ordered that. We did receive PPE and disinfectant and cleaning supplies were ordered on our behalf by Snyder, our emergency management director. From MEMA today, the COA, the school, highway, library, fire, and police also received some supplies out of this allocation. So that was a definite plus. A reminder that the public comment period for our waterways license for the East Street Bridge, which is issued by the DEP, will close on March 17th, 2021. Then they will be able to issue our license. VHB has already submitted documents finalized so that when they receive the final okay from DEP and also Mass DOT on the design, it will be ready to go out to bid. And just to follow up on one of Chris' comments earlier, we have received back from KP Law the amendments that they're recommending to that Wetlands Bylaw from the Attorney General's comments. So I'll be sending those out to the Select Board, the Conservation Commission, also the Bylaw Committee, probably tomorrow.
Thanks, Ed.
Welcome. And the upcoming select board meetings, March 23rd, and then select board meetings in April would be the 6th and the 20th. And that's it for me. Everything else in the agenda.
Questions for Ed?
No.
The Wetlands Bylaw, if the KP Law made some recommendations, does it have to go back to the voters, or does it just be made internally and then it's already been approved by the voters, already been approved by KP, it's accepted?
No, we'd have to put those amendments to the bylaw on the annual meeting.
And then they'd go back to the Attorney General again?
Kidding.
Okay.
Correct. Yep.
All right.
And so with the approval that we already have, though, are we able to put in that $300 fee or fine that we voted on at Select Board and make that something realistic? I mean, the whole bylaw was technically approved by the AG, right?
Well, except for the areas where they were looking for amendments, and the $300 is a part of the amendments that KP sent back.
Okay, well, I guess we'll have to look at it. I thought that was going to be on a separate fee schedule or something, which I was trying to find actually, and I don't know where if Select Board makes a separate fee and fine schedule, or is that a?
Well, we have a separate fee schedule, but Remember that KP us that this isn't a fee, it is a fine, so.
So it would end up being written into the bylaw maybe then, or?
Correct.
Oy.
I mean, so for the part that the AG's office approved, we can't put that into effect and then go and amend that and go through this process by putting forward, the changes that are recommended and go on the route again, so that we at least have something.
Yeah, the more we drag this out, the worse it's going to be.
Basically that was approved, so this is in play. And then these amendments basically address the comments that were needed to be Attorney General.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll take a look at it when you send it out, so we won't belabor it tonight. Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a question about the town meeting? So if we have it outdoors, which has been recommended, then it would logically be, you're saying May 8th, right? Which is a Saturday after the original 4th date?
Yeah, it just depends on what the weather is at that time. I mean, I was thinking like the 8th or the 15th, but one of the things I want to follow up with is see what the average those days, which would be Saturdays, are, to see if, I would think it would be warm enough if we did it at 10 or 11 in the morning, but I just want to check that and make sure.
Okay, I'm wondering if Robert has, hi, Robert.
Hi.
I was going to see if you had something you wanted to say about that.
I do, and unfortunately, I don't have the time to articulate all the concepts and thoughts that we need to discuss as an item on the agenda, but I will respond. As it stands now, May 4th is the annual town meeting. You must sign the warrant on Monday, April 19th. Or if you keep meeting only on Tuesdays, April 13th. In my opinion, I see no possibility of having an annual town meeting in May. Many of the towns that I've corresponded with have postponed or continued, or however they're doing it, to have their annual town meeting on the 2nd or 3rd Saturday in June. And that's pretty much the major consensus. For discussion, the governor's 2020 proclamation that allowed us to have the annual town meeting in August of 2020 is still on the table. I would advise it, but there's no way. Just not prepared.
Yeah.
And so June to me, and besides, for whatever it's worth, I went to hitchhike in college after my senior year, the 2nd or 3rd week in May, and it was frighteningly cold in the 40s, and I have kept a record of every May. And although it could be 92 on Memorial Day, May is brutal in the 40s. I would not recommend that either.
Well, I think obviously the goal is to be safe. The goal is also to encourage people to attend. And if there's any concern that wouldn't happen early on, but on the other end, we need to make sure that, right now, I think we requested legislation for the canceling of the caucus. And I think the language also included a delay up until the 30th of June on the annual town meeting. So perhaps at the next meeting or shortly thereafter, we can come up with a little bit more definitive plan.
And one last thing, thank you, Madam Chair. As town moderator, I will not approve, for safety reasons, that we meet indoors for this upcoming annual town meeting.
Okay.
So that's going to impact our elections as well, then, the date of our elections.
I think we passed a bylaw so that the elections followed the town meeting.
Right.
Okay, so I think what we'll have to do is just probably by possibly the next meeting, have that discussion about what would be a target date to have these both occurrences. Ed, am I right about that as far as the legislation, that the legislation included the ability to defer the town election, the town meeting until June 30th?
Yes, and that had passed the House, and it's in the Senate right now, which is supposed to act on it this week. And Lindsay Sabadosa had championed it in the House for it, and Senator Velas is championing it in the Senate for us, and is going to keep me in the loop and updated on that process and what actually passes in the Senate.
Okay. All right, we'll put on the agenda for next time, and we'll look at dates.
So we have to, getting back to the election versus the town meeting, we have to stay within the same order that we put forward in the bylaws, which is the town meeting first and then the election, correct? Okay.
I think it specifies, I don't know if it just says one follows the other, or whether there's specifically some time that has to, or if it's just one follows the other. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it says the first week in May is the annual town meeting, and the third Tuesday in May is the election.
The first Tuesday in May is the town meeting, and the third Tuesday in May is the annual town election by the bylaws.
Yeah, so I'm assuming if we're able to defer the date on the annual town meeting, that, obviously we can defer the other. It's just, the point is one follows the other. Yeah. If you're in there in the budget season and you're seeing the budget through and making votes towards that and everything else for the town meeting. I know when I first came on, I literally landed on day one. My first activity as a new select board member is to land at a town meeting. And I hadn't been part of the process up till then on all the votes. And there was some difficulty that year between the finance committee and the select board. And I was a little bit unprepared for that. So anyway, I think it's a good thing. We just have to, I'm assuming would be fine to have the dates not be exactly what's in the bylaw if the town meeting isn't the same.
Right.
This would probably be a good time to just say that there are a lot of open positions in town. We got a list of them from Lucy Dalton, our town clerk. I'm not going to go through reading all of them, but perhaps at one of the upcoming meetings, we can provide that information to everybody, Ed. But I think that, hopefully a lot of people have stepped up this year to be on committees. We have 3 brand new committees in the last year. And I hope that people also step up to run for office.
Yeah. I think it would be good to know, if people are, taking time and pulling papers and trying to get signatures, it would be good to know especially if we have positions that are open where nobody has pulled any papers. I think that would be helpful to know, so that the general public could say, hey, well, look, I never thought about running for office, but hey, maybe this would be of interest to me. So it might be useful just to know what slots are really wide open compared to, and are there, whatever, whatever we can know. I think the better will be for, getting more people to step up.
Because we have a new resignation from Corey tonight. But before that, I counted the number of vacant, open positions for elected office. There are 34.
Yeah, wow. That's a lot.
That's a lot. So he would be 35, that position. So, we need a lot of people coming forward.
And one of the values of the caucus was, the ability to, put your hat in the ring and be nominated and be on the ballot. So without that happening, maybe for the next time, Ed, we can kind of narrow down the dates and also mention what, how many people have pulled papers for each, whatever let people know what the open positions are.
Yes, that would work.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Ed? No?
No, that's it for me. Okay, thank you.
So we have two presentations. The first is Jen Ramsey from Easthampton Media, following up with us about the PEG broadcasting equipment for Town Hall, and then Cindy Palmer, Chair of the Open Space Committee. So welcome, Jen.
Hi there, thank you. Jen Ramsey, Easthampton Media. Last time we spoke, I believe we were trying to pass through the capital funds to upgrade the equipment in the select board room. We did receive those funds. It was December 30th or something when I received the check. So we are ready to make a purchase and to install equipment. Now, since then, I've been working with our vendor and charter, and keeping in mind we're basically going to propose the same exact equipment. We're going to be, with the movable microphones, the ability to do hybrid meetings, which is combining in person with virtual participants. But new information has come up, and that is that we are able to set up an IP-based TV broadcast system. What that means is that we would be able to house the control station in our studio in Eastworks and run all of the meetings from our Eastworks location. The cameras and the microphones would still live in the select board room, but what that would do is open us up for more opportunities for trained volunteers or interns to help out with some of these meetings. As you know, we have a very small technical staff of 2, and those 2 split their duties between Easthampton and Southampton. So we're pretty understaffed, and we make our best. We do our best to cover every single meeting that's requested of us, as long as we have the staffing to do that. So I guess what I'm proposing here today is just, do you have any concerns about us housing the controls in our Eastworks location rather than in the same room as Select Board?
Yes, I do. Can we back up a little bit, Jen, and talk a little bit about the equipment that I've been waiting a really, really long time for? So I'm glad that the money's here, December 30th. You're all set to purchase the equipment. You're all set to install the equipment. Can we talk about what the plan is for that? And I think that I have concerns about having what we're supposed to have in Southampton. We are part of a system which is called Easthampton Media. A lot of charter money goes in your direction to provide this service, which we have some mixed feelings about the future of IT and so forth. We have a brand new IT committee, which I'd love to get involved in the actual implementation of this service. So can you just spend a little bit more time talking about, you said you think or you plan on providing the same equipment that you had provided us a detail sheet on. Is it exactly the same? Is it something different? I feel like we've been waiting for this forever.
Yep, and the reason we are finally at a point where we can do this is because we received that money.
Okay, good.
In December.
Mm-hmm.
The list of equipment has not changed. The only thing that has changed is that we have the ability to send a signal from all the cameras and microphones over IP, a closed network basically, and run these meetings from our studio in Eastworks rather than have one of our technicians in the same room as Select Board. And the benefit to that is that we can properly staff meetings. We can offer internships and training ability. It's not really going to change the level of service that you get. We're still covering all Select Board meetings. We do cover planning board meetings by choice, and we cover any other meetings that are requested of us as long as we get enough notice. To answer your question, the equipment has not changed. It's the same exact package that I proposed. It's just we have the ability to control from our studio.
Could I just interrupt here?
Yeah.
While you're talking, is there any advantage to having the equipment in your studio that would afford us the opportunity to stream these meetings instead of going through charter?
Yes. So, the reason we exist is to run a public access TV channel. right? But we are very forward looking, and we know that the future is not television. The future is internet. So this system will also allow us simultaneously to stream on the web as well as television. So if PEG funding ran up and we had to transition to a completely different 501c3 organization where our mission is to provide this service over the internet, we could easily plug into like your municipal fiber and still run this service. It would just be streaming meetings only rather than television. But what I'm proposing today, and what I've proposed, that list of equipment takes into account that we will be on TV and streaming live on YouTube at the same time.
And that is regardless of where the equipment lives?
Yes.
So that would be the same whether the equipment was in Southampton?
Yes. Yeah. So you understand, from a staffing point of view, having someone in the same room as select board sitting there for 3, 4, 5 hours, it's not the best environment. And what I tried to do is explore using that studio room in the basement, but I've been denied, and I understand why. It's being used for storage. But the original intent for that room was for a TV studio. So in most other stations, the technician sits in a separate room, and there's a good reason for that, to be able to monitor the audio better, to be able to speak to their partner if they have someone assisting or learning with them. So it's like about opening up accessibility so people can learn video production or TV production, but it's also a comfort thing. And this is like last on the list, but in a 3, 4, 5 hour meeting, the technician has to use the restroom at some point. And, what they would do is put everything on a wide shot and, go to the restroom and come back. So having it in our facility, I can have, 2 people working that night. And if someone needs to run, to the restroom or something, the other person can cover for them. So there's a lot of factors here, but the fact is the equipment list has not changed.
Okay, Jen, so I just need a little bit more clarification, because the people that paid for all of this is the residents of Southampton that are paying their charter bill. So I guess I'm not entirely clear, and I also feel a little bit of an obligation to protect what was bought with these funds by Southampton people to be available to Southampton.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're part of an organization that is heavily Easthampton. So I feel like in some way our responsibility is to protect the assets of Southampton. And I'm just not sure that I'm hearing what the big benefit is to Southampton as opposed to your employees.
So let me just say something. I just have a comment. The system that will be installed at Easthampton Media, should it be installed that way, will be 100% dedicated to Southampton, right? That there's
Correct.
no economies to scale in terms of using a system like that and then scaling it to represent either another municipality or another organization, or to parlay it and to utilize either the rack, the IP rack that it goes into, or whatever it might be. This is 100% Southampton stuff, correct? Okay, that was my assumption. So this is actually close to my field of expertise. I provide IP visualization for operating rooms. Having an equipment rack and IP rack and do IP video is the wave of the future. No longer are these integrations, they're integration systems is what they're called. They're not held locally anymore. I mean, in fact, they could be held states away if need be. And it's honestly the better way to go. Holding this locally requires maintenance, requires her staff to come to us. They can provide the same level of functionality with our rack and integration system installed at their facility. I mean, the only ultimate risk is that, speaking blatantly here, is if we ever cut ties with Easthampton Media, we're going to have to somehow get our integration rack back, basically.
Sure. And we keep an inventory list. I mean, we're a 501c3. We have to follow laws and rules and have an accountant, and it's everything is accounted for. So if we were to cut ties, we have that equipment list. We would just give all that equipment back. I hope we don't ever have to cut ties. I hope that we can continue to grow and serve better. So, but yeah, I mean,
this is the way to go. I mean, technologically speaking, this is where we need to be.
No matter what,
honestly,
whether
this is the benefit.
What about
benefit to
troubleshooting in Southampton? So we have no staff in the building. We have a meeting that's running. What if there are IT issues? Who handles them?
We do.
Okay, so if there's
well, I mean, not the IT, but we would handle any issues to do with the video broadcast.
Okay.
You know,
several times last time we didn't have live broadcasts because there were problems with the technology or something. So if we're sitting in Southampton, we're having a select board meeting and we had problems with any of the equipment or systems, who would then troubleshoot?
So I'm not letting Jen off
I'm
the hook.
asking Jen, actually, Matt.
I get it, but those problems are still going to exist. That's what charter and the line going out to the road. And we have those issues. Those issues are not going to get resolved by this. And that issue would exist. And Jen can speak, but I know this well too. That issue that exists in our town hall getting out to the road, if it can't get out to the road in the town hall, it's not going to get out to the road in an IP-based system. It's a function of the fact that our fiber is either junk between here and the road, or we've got an issue with charter. And I think that we've resolve that as best as we can, but that issue exists. Like she can't solve for that. Neither can Easthampton.
Well, there's an awful lot of equipment that's being provided in town hall, new microphones, a lot of new equipment. If there are any problems with any of them, who handles it is my question.
Any of the equipment that we're purchasing for this project, we would troubleshoot. And if I can't troubleshoot or my staff can't, then we would hire someone and we would pay for that with the funds that are already in that are operating funds. The only, I don't want to go back into the history, but moving forward, we have a contract and it lays out who pays for it and who troubleshoots it. And it's very clear that it's us if it's our equipment. If it's not our equipment, then it falls back on the town.
We have to go to an IP. I've been super critical of Jen, and I know I've gone after you on this. Like, I've been super critical, just like you, Rainey, of the fact that this has been delay. If there is only one benefit for the reason why we've delayed so long on this project, it's because now we're getting an IP-based system, which we should have had originally, as opposed to a local-based system. Like, this is absolutely where we should be. This is way better technology than we've ever been offered before. And so if this, the silver lining in this is we are getting a much more functional system now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With way better bandwidth and more future-proof. The system we were buying before, that local-based system, was not future-proof at all.
Mm-hmm.
The new information that came was that I was able to get in touch with John Maher, government affairs person for charter, and confirm that there is a direct line, fiber line from Town Hall to Eastworks where we are. So, and that direct line allows us to control meetings from Eastworks. But regardless of that, we were already going to an IP-based system. That was already the equipment list that I proposed to you all. So it's just the new information, the fact that we can't have the studio room in the basement, and the fact that it's going to open us up for professional development, for training, for people to get involved with us and be able to sit side by side with our staff and learn how this all works. That's the benefit to having the controls in our Eastworks building. And if it doesn't work, we can always move the controls to the town hall and continue to just go there to cover them. That would be fine.
Can I ask, was there any economies to be realized by doing it this way as opposed to having people come to us?
How much money are we going to save is the question.
Yeah, any economy of scale here?
I'm not sure. That's not something that I thought.
Okay, well.
But what it is going to do is open me up to capacity. It's going to allow my capacity to grow in terms of being able to cover things.
Yeah.
And the other thing it does is people are moving, it's the fact of life, are moving away from cable, and the fact that and so if you don't have cable, you can't access town meetings. So with this, the ability to have it streamed, people now can view it
Live online, yes. Like right now, we're not live online. I don't think we're live online. I think we're just live on TV. But we always put the recording up within a day or two, right? So people can access recorded meetings anytime on the internet on our YouTube channel.
Right.
But yes, this new system will allow people to watch online in real time.
When will that happen?
As soon as I get the yes or no from you on housing the controls here or not, I am going to make an appointment with our vendor. He's booking out maybe a month or two. But again, this is for post-COVID. Like right now, we're still doing everything on Zoom. Nobody's meeting in the town hall, right? So we have plenty of time to install and test and make sure it all works and come up with a protocol. So I would say within a month or two, as soon as I get the yes or no from you.
Chris or Ed, do you want to add anything to that?
It sounds like a workable plan. The only thing I would say is I'm going to go back and review the contract because we may need to make an amendment to the contract because I believe there was something in there about what was in the town hall was owned by the town of Southampton or whatever. So we may have to make a little clause to amend that or not. So I'll go back and take a look at that, but I'm sure we could work that out.
Yeah, I believe something in the contract says anything purchased with the funds belongs to the town of Southampton if the contract is null. So no matter where it lives, if we purchased it with your funds, which we have a very good bookkeeping and accounting system to keep track of that, that would be returned to you.
Yeah, I just want to go back and take a look at that wording because I remember it being a little bit different, but it's been a while since we did that, so.
Yeah. No, I don't have any particular questions, Rainey. I
just think that, our board changes, our staff changes. I want it to be in writing that the equipment that the Southampton residents bought is being housed in a private company, even if it's 501(c), because I don't want that to be lost. That's all. And I think wording it like the Southampton residents bought it is a little misleading. It's, it's the charter customers. Yeah. But, the charter is ultimately the one that gives back that money. It's not like a direct, the subscribers pay us. Subscribers get a little tiny fee on their bill, and that goes to charter. And then charter decides what percentage to give for public access back to the town. So, but yeah, I mean, this is your station. Like, just because we're called Easthampton Media doesn't mean we're not, we are in a time of change here with our organization. And, a few years from now, we could change our name so that it's all encompassing of the people that we serve. Yeah, I think we recommended that you do that, to be honest with you, Jen. And I think we've had a history, if I wouldn't be so jaded about all of this, if it wasn't a history that was a little bit problematic. So I think that I just want assurances that the equipment that is being bought by Southampton, whether it's the residents, the charter members, the charter itself, that we've been waiting a very, very long time for this equipment. And I just want to make sure that the equipment that was purchased by us, so to speak, is not lost. In that you're doing this for the benefit of Southampton, not for your own benefit specifically. Yep. And I think that we just have to continue to work on the relationship between Easthampton Media and the town of Southampton, because I want to make sure that it's there to serve our town as well as Easthampton. Yep. Mm-hmm. And we're actually, just to let you know, we're actually partnering with Cindy Palmer and the Conservation Commission on a project coming up. So, we are doing the best we can to reach out and partner and help. And, we are the town's media outlet. If you have anything you want to show or you want to get the word out about, that's what we're here for.
Yeah. Yep.
We're not the reminder. We don't have, news people or anything, but the future of our organization may be community storytelling, where we have people that are trained that go out and tell news type stories. There's a really high potential here. I'm just working through the issues that I inherited when I started.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Any other comments?
No, just to say that I think Easthampton Media has been very responsive to the couple things we did during the master plan community survey too. We ran the PSA on the channel, on the Southampton channel that Jen helped us put up, and certainly we record on the recorded meetings for the Grantcom and master plan. They're put up within a couple of days of sending the file off to Ryan. So they've been really good at getting things up on a timely basis on our YouTube, on our website.
I think the sooner we get streaming, the better.
Yeah.
Francine?
Yeah, just a question. One of the major complaints that people have had is about the audio. People couldn't hear. So when you say you're going to get the exact same equipment, what about the microphones?
When I say I'm getting the exact same equipment, I'm talking about the proposal that I brought to you when things were really confusing. We didn't know who was in charge of bidding. Okay. So it's the same equipment that we proposed. The equipment that is in your town hall right now is garbage. 2 predecessors of mine ago installed it himself, and he is not, he didn't have it professionally installed, and that's why we had a lot of issues. New microphones are coming. They will be movable, so if you move that room around, you can scooch them around. Some things that we would put into place would be, before a live meeting, one of our staff would go down to the town hall an hour or 2 before and do a live test and make sure everything is running, so that we know when we come back to our Eastwork studio to sit down and control the meeting that everything works. We're going to have procedures in place so we can catch technical challenges before they go live. So.
Cindy, did you want to say something?
Well, if Jen was going to leave before I gave my report, I just want to say, today, she and I had a lengthy conversation about the program that I'm going to report on, which is an upcoming neighborhood outreach program as part of the Open Space Committee. And she says this all falls under the community outreach aspect of what Easthampton Media does. I'm very thrilled with what she's telling us, and I'm even more thrilled, Jen, if it turns into live real-time opportunity, not through Channel 191, because I'm one of the town residents that doesn't have a cable, and so I've never been able to watch anything on cable. And Francine's right, we're moving away from that. So I just wanted to plug that it was very easy to talk to Jen, and I'm looking forward to working with her on this program. Thanks.
Thank you. I look forward to working with you as well.
Can we pick a date, Jen, for you to come back and give us an update on the equipment and the installation and everything?
Well, I can't move forward until I know what your if you're okay with us housing the controls in Eastworks or not.
Does anybody have any concern about them housing the controls in Easthampton?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. So we're in favor of that. So could I ask for a date for you to come back and give us an update on the purchase and plans for installation of the equipment?
Sure.
And also the live stream?
Sure. I mean, it's all going to be done at once. It's going to be, we just did this in Easthampton, by the way. We were in a similar situation with them where their equipment was bad. And the installation took 1 week. There were 3 people on the team of the vendor that we chose. And it was very smooth. And what they did was put in pretty much the same system that we're proposing to Southampton. So everything is streamlined so that our staff basically uses, 2 different systems, but they're the same model, so they understand how to use it. So I guess what I'm saying is that once we say yes, we're ready to move forward. It's a matter of when our vendor's available. If they're scheduling out 1 or 2 months, they're just going to need a week of time in the town hall building. They'll be masked. I'll head down there to supervise. So I guess the update I could give you is maybe in April.
Okay. I'll have you just work out with Ed being on the agenda for one of the select board meetings in April and give us an update.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for Jen?
Nope.
All right, thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
Cindy, you want to talk about the Open Space Committee?
Yep. So as you recall, in July of last year, the select board charged the then newly formed Open Space Committee, which grew out of the former Open Space Ad Hoc Review Committee. And this is what the charge said, quote, to ensure protection of the town's farmlands, woodlands, wetlands, scenic views, and other open spaces vital in sustaining the town's historic, agricultural, and rural character, and in maintaining the quality of air, water, and wildlife habitat for the health and well-being of all residents. So all strategies within that charge steer the actions of the Open Space Committee. And those strategies include advising the Select Board on open space issues, aligning with the Master Plan and the Open Space and Recreation Plan, to collaborate with other boards and committees in our town, to acquire funding as necessary for whatever our activities are, and also to catalog priority lands and develop long-term relationships with landowners. The committee is further steered by residents' priorities per the data that has been collected from 2 town-wide community engagement surveys. One was the update of the Open Space and Recreation Plan survey, which I think occurred in the end of 2019, and the other was the update of the residents' priorities for the implementation of the 2013 Master Plan. In each of these surveys, town residents expressed that land conservation and protection of wildlife, groundwater, forests, scenic views, and rural character be among their very highest priorities. So that steers a lot of what the Open Space Committee is absolutely aware of. We meet approximately 1 to 2 times a month. They're open meetings. They're posted on My Town Government, and we always welcome public comments. The committee is comprised of appointees from the Conservation Commission, the Board of Assessors, Parks Commission, Planning Board, Community Preservation Committee, and the Select Board. And it's also steered, as I said, through the strong communication and collaboration with other town boards and committees. We have committee reports, and we go to other meetings as necessary. Added to the elected or appointment boards that I just mentioned is the newly formed Friends of Southampton Open Space. It's a nonprofit organization. It's brand new. It's still in its nascent stage, and it is going to become an official 501c3 organization. They're still awaiting approval by the IRS, which is very backed up from what we hear for those kinds of things. The IRS is. All communications and contacts with landowners, decisions and goals of their priorities are respected. We don't coerce, of course, any landowner towards any particular direction. Rather, we try to understand what is a landowner's goals and what are their questions and how can we help find answers. Since last July, the Open Space Committee activities have included the beginning and the ongoing development of creation of a list of Southampton's properties which meet the criteria for long-term conservation, such as what is the ecological value of that land? Is it contingent with other conserved properties? Is it large? Is it because a landowner has contacted us? And there's additional criteria, and that's all spelled out in the Open Space and Recreation Plan update that's still waiting for approval, I guess. We also reinforced the invitation to large parcel landowners to participate in the monthly webinars, which were named Protecting Your Legacy, and they were designed by the Mass Lands, which is a coalition of Mass Land Trusts, and by the UMass Extension Service. And I know that some of our property owners have been able to participate on those monthly webinars, which is a combination of specific programs that will help answer their questions. And I know directly that one of the landowners that contacted me through the email that we have in our town system, the open space at mytowngovernment.org, did so because he received that invitation. And I'm very excited about that particular landowner. It's a large, very iconic property in our town, and he wants to find out what he can do in terms of long-term conservation. We have gone ahead and developed some contacts with our landowners, and some of them I email regularly, I contact, I let them know what's going on, and they say they're very appreciative of that. And I'm looking forward to having another, a large wealth of landowners that we have a regular contact with. We also have one of our committee members has worked very hard to develop a map and a brochure, which is kind of in the final draft form right now, of the Barnes Aquifer and the best practices that should be applied for protecting our drinking water supply and the Barnes, specifically the Barnes Aquifer. That will be mailed out to all town residents. I wasn't sure when that would be mailed out, but it looks like that's going to come a little later in 2021. Rather exciting, in recent weeks, I mean very recently, last 3 or 4 weeks, the Open Space Committee has learned of an award of a grant it's the Neighborhood Outreach Grant. And this is, has 2 primary activities. One activity is to educate our town residents about conservation issues. Now, we are a town meeting form of government, so we want our residents educated just in case something comes up at town meeting that they need to vote on, perhaps utilization of CPC funds or CPA funds, or just generally understanding what's going on in terms of conservation in our town. So one whole aspect of this grant will be used to have some educational programs. There's going to be an all-town mailing, inviting people to participate. We have to follow COVID rules. We can't join hundreds of people together in any particular place in our town. So the good news is Easthampton Media is going to be filming the presentations, except, of course, the guided hikes, and 2 of the programs will be guided hikes. And there'll be a whole variety of topics that will be, it's still in the final draft form, so it'll be presented at our open space meeting, which is in 2 nights. And the other part of this grant is used to fund mailings and also the honorariums for expert speakers. And this will go to specific list of large parcel landowners to learn about topics that they've actually inquired about, like how do they apply for a conservation restriction, and how do they get an official appraisal of their potential conservation lands. I'm pulling together those expert speakers. I've spoken to 3 of them. They're very excited about this, and those also will be filmed, or at least their educational part of their presentation will be filmed by Easthampton Media and available for viewing at the convenience of the landowners. But what has been discovered is that landowners who join together in conversation with each other, it sort of stimulates thinking, stimulates questions, perhaps helps people think about something like conservation. You may recall that there was a neighborhood outreach program 2 years ago, and one of the speakers that came was a gentleman from Conway, who was a large tract landowner, and he could give specific examples how by having conversations with neighbors, et cetera, it resulted in some pretty significant conjoined conservation lands in the town of Conway. So that is critical to the particular grant that we do this kind of gathering, again, within COVID rules. We're going to do it all at Conant Park. That's already been scheduled. Fortunately, we have a nice roof on the Conant Park Pavilion. And unless we get a severe storm, I think even a cool rainy day, it's possible to bring people together and drink hot coffee or cocoa or something like that. So that's all coming together. We have, all of those programs have to be completed by mid-May of this year. So we're on a kind of a tight time frame for having it happen, but the planning is well underway and the speakers are lined up. We continue to keep a constant communication with Kestrel Land Trust, specifically through Mark Walmsley. And I'm really excited to say that he informs us that Southampton is absolutely on Kestrel Land Trust's radar. They're involved in some pretty big projects with other communities this year, but I think we're on their radar for getting into some very large conservation projects, maybe for 2022. And we're doing the groundwork now. We're lining up, we're informing, we're making connections, and this is what's really, really critical. So I'm a bad optimist or a good optimist, but I feel very good about the potential for all of this. I really want to say thank you to the entire committee for all their hard work and consistent dedication on behalf of all of the residents of the town, now and in the future. And finally, I have a request, if it's possible. I know you're looking at budgets right now. This committee has no funding whatsoever for periodic mailings primarily, and I just wonder if we can have a modest budget. I'm going to throw out $1,000. If we don't use it, we don't take it, but I just wonder if there's a way that there could be a line item in the town budget for the periodic mailings that this committee might be doing. I don't know if that's the right way to request it or if there's something else I should do. If somebody can inform me, I will follow up on that. That's my report.
Well, Cindy, thank you very much. I just want to say that as a liaison to this committee and previously on the committee when it started as an ad hoc, Cindy does a phenomenal job in terms of all the work of this committee. It's just remarkable how much good work has come out of this committee. So thanks for your leadership. I imagine in terms of a budget request, it would be submitted to Ed and then presented to the Finance Committee. Am I right about that?
Yes, I can send Cindy a template.
Okay.
Thanks, Ed.
Any other questions, comments for Cindy?
You're welcome.
I just want to say I'm excited that we have a good relationship with Kestrel because I've been to a couple of their trails. They're phenomenal, what they've done. It's great. So I would love to have the same kind of, hiking facilities here in Southampton.
Anybody else?
I'm not going to go into specific contacts with landowners, but I got to tell you, it's very exciting. Some of the people we've been in touch with, I don't know, I went hiking on Wolf Hill Sanctuary with my granddaughter over the weekend. That's one of the areas we're going to have the guided hikes on, and Marla from the Conservation Commission really wanted to know, what kind of shape it's in after all the wind we had last week. Mm-hmm. And then we drove up Fulmer Road and I ran into a landowner that had spoken to me on the phone, very large tract landowner in the Tycarmody Reservoir watershed area, but it's a private parcel. He said, "Oh my goodness, this is really exciting. I would love to get town residents out there. It's private. I'm not going to open that up to everybody, but I want to walk with him, and I might be in touch with a few of you if you want to hike in this area." It's absolutely so exciting. Some of the things that I think will come out of all of this.
Yeah, that's great.
Right.
Between the trail work that's being done and the programs, I went to all the neighborhood outreach programs last time, and it was remarkable. Not only were the speakers incredibly informative, but it was wonderful to see so many, I don't want to say old-time Southampton people, but long-time residents that have lived in this land for such a long period of time, being able to talk to each other. Like it was an opportunity for people to really be together. And I think they really appreciated seeing people from long ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so thank you, Cindy.
Yep.
And it's also the third most common thing on the master plan survey was the preservation of open space. So appreciate all you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Ready to move on to old business? We start with the caucus. As Ed mentioned, Lindsay Sabadosa championed that, and I think the legislation is moving right along that we can cancel the caucus. We voted on that last time. Anything else to add about that, Ed?
No, I think we pretty much got that. We're just, like I say, it passed the House. It's in the Senate. John Velis had reached out to me to follow up. and he's keeping an eye on it, and he'll keep me posted on how that comes out. We're supposed to act on it sometime this week, so it seems to be moving fairly quickly.
Okay. Any questions about that? The next agenda item is the town administrator contract. So the select board and Ed has been in negotiation with Ed regarding the town administrator contract. And we are ready to approve this in open session. We have followed the guidance by our attorney in terms of the process. And I wanted to start, before I highlight some of the things about the contract, to say it's been a really hard year for everybody. I think COVID has made even a challenging situation 10 times more challenging. So I just want to say thank you to Ed for all the work that you've done this past year, particularly in the environment of COVID and all the uncertainty and all the additional work with CARES Act and funding and meetings and so forth, and all the Zoom meetings that you're actually hosting on behalf of so many other committees. I just want to say thank you very much for all the work that you've done this past year. It has been difficult, and I'm very aware of that. So I also wanted to say, I wanted to say that, we had a conversation about a number of things about the contract. And I think that on the same thing, it's, we also discuss some things that we wanted to include in the contract, that both Ed and the select board agreed that some parts of the position could be improved upon. And I think that we were in pretty mutual agreement about that. So I would like to just say that this contract was negotiated with Ed to have a 2.5-year contract. So it will initiate where the last contract left off, which is January 8th of 2021, and will go until, it'll go until 2023. So January 9, 2021 to June 30th, 2023. This will be a public document once the select board and Ed approve it, but I wanted to highlight a couple of the items, and then we can open it up for discussion. So this agreement is made and entered into on this March 9th, 2021 between the town of Southampton, a municipal corporation, Hampshire County, acting through its select board, and Ed Gibson of West Springfield. And then I'm just going to highlight a few things in terms of the annual rate. You might remember that Ed voluntarily took a $3,000 cut in pay as a leader in the town in the middle of COVID, when we were so financially strapped. We tried to restore the money when we found out we had additional funds before the special town meeting, and he declined. So there was an amendment to his contract. So his rate of pay was reduced from $81,600 down to $78,600. The select board would like to reestablish for fiscal year 22, the original where he was, $81,600, and that for the next two fiscal years of the budget, he has agreed to receive the same percentage increase as other non-union personnel. And so I once again want to thank you for being a leader in terms of the pay change. The holidays are pretty much the same, although in the contract it does say that it is subject to the personnel rules and regulations, and the town administrator will be entitled to the holidays that are according to the personnel rules and regulations. And my understanding is there may be some changes to that this year with the state of Massachusetts. So we left it as according to the personnel policies. He has the same allowances in terms of professional affiliations and mileage and hours of work and duties. There is a change in terms of the benefits relative to vacation days are increased to 25 days of vacation. And another change is relative to the performance evaluation. He will continue to have an annual performance evaluation, and that the select board has agreed that a feedback will be sought. If additional feedback other than the select board is sought towards his evaluation, that it will only be feedback from the town administrator's direct reports. And we were in agreement with that. And there's terms and governing law, appropriation, additional requirements. So I just want to say that the select board has requested that in his contract that there are additional requirements, and he has agreed to these, and he has also submitted additional requirements, and I'm just going to review them very quickly. That there will be department head meetings every 2 weeks on day 1 or 2 after regularly scheduled select board meetings. The select board would really like to have those happen regularly and religiously. That minutes will be taken and recorded by an assistant. We don't want Ed to have to do minutes, and we'll present the minutes for approval at select board meetings by either 30 days or by meeting 3 after the meeting. That Ed will work with the town treasurer and accountant to provide the select board and department heads with the most updated revenue and expenditures report available every month. So pretty much every other regular select board meeting. Adhere to the current budget process bylaw for task and timetables. Complete 1 staff evaluation per month from July to March. We're just carving out the budget, heavy duty budget months. And that will allow for 1 a month of his direct reports. Set and adhere to deadline dates for project process points and completion. Identify tasks to delegate, building, filing, correspondence, that sort of thing. In addition, work with the town accountant, treasurer, collector, assessor, and finance committee preliminarily and with individual department heads to identify alternative and cost-saving methods and revenue enhancements, including the use of technology to positively affect the cost of delivering services to our town residents and businesses. He will present such recommendations to the select board and finance committee for January 2022 to be included in the FY23 budget. We'll recommend to the select board and finance committee an alternative way or ways to have departments and committees present their budget requests in preparation for the October 1st, 2021 town meeting. We'll also work with our internal financial departments to review our current financial software system and present a request to the finance committee and select board for an upgrade or change, including the advantages and disadvantages of upgrading and changing the estimated cost by December 1, 2021. Work with the new ad hoc technology committee and the select board to improve our information network. We'll present quarterly reports on our information technology system and recommend any improvements, advantages of upgrading systems along with estimated cost. We'll identify possible grant opportunities and other funding sources to help implement changes and upgrades to deliver improvements. Delegate IT upgrades and troubleshooting to the ad hoc technology committee. And lastly, to work with the town accountant, treasurer, collector, and assessor to identify estimated revenue receipts, timelines to be able to match departmental large expenditures such as capital projects and one-time annual payments to receive the most available discounts for early or one-time payments without requiring short-term borrowing due to the expenses exceeding revenues. And that will be by July 1, 2022. So the last ones here that focus on finance, Ed has submitted. The previous ones were by the select board. So in witness thereof, the parties have hereunto signed this agreement on the day the 9th of March. So I would like to request a motion to approve the town administrator contract.
Okay, I move to approve the town administrator contract as detailed.
Second.
And Matt, second. Francine and Matt. Discussion.
Thank you for all your work on this, Rainey.
Yeah, thank you. Thank everybody. No further comments?
Well, I want to thank Ed.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Tishman, aye.
Fowles, aye.
Roland, aye.
And Groden, aye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Ready to move on to the assistant accountant position update?
We have not received really any qualified applicants as of yet. So let me see if I can find some money. I might have some funding left in my administrative expense account that we could transfer over and put this on Indeed and see if we can get some applications generated for it.
Okay, this has not yet been on Indeed, right?
Correct.
Okay. My experience is once that happens, they usually are. It's a pretty pretty good vehicle for folks to go on and look for positions. Any recommendations from the select board?
No, just to say, it's just been out on the various municipal sites, right? On the both the treasurer and the accountant municipal site. Yeah.
On our own, on the MMA, on the accountants and auditors, yes. Yeah, Jen Day had sent me some of the applicants that had applied for the administrative clerk in her office, but none of them really had any accounting experience or accounting background.
Okay. If that can actually be put up on Indeed, I think that would be very helpful. So if you can proceed in doing that.
Yeah, I'll put it up a small budget of like $200.
Okay. Everybody in agreement with that?
Yes.
Yep.
East Street Bridge, I think we kind of got the update that we're coming up on next week on the waterways license, hopefully, and hopefully VHB will get this going. The bid will be put up as soon as DEP and DOT ends up approving it. We need to really move this as soon as possible.
Yeah, I don't want to waste any more time. That's why I had reached out to VHB to make sure that everything that could be put in place for the bid package is, and that they aren't waiting until they receive those final words from DEP and DOT before they start putting that together. Because yes, I would like to get this out as fast as possible to get it back and get moving on it.
Yeah.
What is our, I mean, we pretty much have, the town voted in favor of an additional $1 million on this, and 1.5, right? Because we got $1 million from the state.
1.6 million.
Right.
The state had given us $1 million. Correct.
Right. So the town, is funding 1.6 million of this. And where do we stand on the timetable of the $1 million from the state?
That's tight. We're getting very close to June 30th. The only thing I can say is that when we did do our budget and timeline, that we put the entire $1 million allocated to the demolition of the bridge. So that's going to happen first. So, fortunately, once we get that low contractors bid back and award the contract, once they can stage it, like I say, that works all up front. So I am very hopeful that we can still meet that original timeline.
Okay. Anything we can do, like it's got to be like numero uno, front burner, no like room for dragging feet, all of that. Is there anything that we can do?
Not at this point. We're basically, at the mercy of DEP and DOT for their final comments and the waterways license, and then we'll be good.
Okay, we'll keep it on the agenda then. Let's keep keep this front and center. Okay, any other questions about the bridge?
Yeah. Just that it'll be good to get that going. I know there's a lot of people that are concerned about East Street itself. So
yeah,
I'm continually hearing comments from residents that have to travel East Street, and I'm sure Randall will be out pothole patching whenever he can find the right mix of stuff to put in the road. But it's
bad.
It's unfortunate to have to keep on patching rather than getting a new road sooner.
Yep.
Yeah, they were out last week when it was warm, and I'm sure they're probably out today, tomorrow, and Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay. Bylaws amendment review.
Okay, well, what you have here is our 8 bylaws that have been reviewed and approved by the select board to move to the, and they have gone on to the attorney. They have been placed on hold for legal review for financial reasons, but now we've kind of suspended, that hold. So these 8 will go forward, if I'm understanding this correctly, and we'll hear back from our attorneys with comments, hopefully with approvals, and then we'll be able to bring them forward at town meeting.
Can you list the name of the bylaws, please,
Sure.
Francine?
One is on select boards, the other is on general government, the third is restriction on issuance of licenses and permits, the fourth is overnight parking, the fifth is fire lanes and fire hydrants, the sixth is on the Council of Aging, 7 is sidewalk clearing, and 8 is on Community Preservation Commission.
Okay.
Okay, and so all of those are back in the packet for everyone to see, but this was the version you saw and approved last year.
Yep. And they're in the hands of KP right now, and they've gotten the go-ahead to review them in order for the town meeting.
I asked them the question basically 3 different ways. I asked them how many in the priority order of 1 through 8 did they think they could get through with $600. I asked them if they thought that they might be able to get more than in a priority order if they skipped around, if some were simpler than others. And they also asked them the question of, okay, how much, after that's figured out, how much would it cost to get the rest of the 8 done? So as soon as I hear back, I'll let you know. I'll let them, go ahead with the most of those 8 that they can get done for the $600. And then we'll figure out if we want to allocate any further funds to them to do additional ones.
Yeah. And I think the only other 2 or 3 that we would have had were the ones that we were recommending deletion for, that they're kind of obsolete.
Right.
So those were really, hopefully they would agree with that. And then there'll be the 2 new ones that Francine had talked about earlier. 2 or 3 new ones.
Right. Solicitation and nuisance and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are ones you all haven't seen yet, but yeah, those are ones that I think we're ready to see if we should organize some sort of a public meeting so residents could comment on them. We've had all the relevant department heads comment on them. But if there's a feeling that we should put those out, I know we've had a lot of requests to deal with the nuisance issue. Soliciting has been,
building numbering,
a challenge as well. And the building numbering one is a display of just putting your number on your building, on your house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, I just think that the ones that you selected here and the ones we voted last time are, in terms of still having an outdoor meeting, still having a COVID environment, I think the other 2 are a little bit more controversial, frankly, in terms of, I just think that there's going to be more discussion about them. So I think that if we can get more done by having all 8 plus the deletion ones, I'd be very interested to see what that would cost.
Yeah.
And just allow a little bit more public involvement in the other ones before it ends up at a town meeting and that ends up having a lengthy discussion while we're still in the COVID environment.
And yeah, we agree to that. That's
Okay.
fine.
Yeah. All righty. Any questions of Francine or Chris about the bylaws? And we're also going to have the wetlands one that has to be re-reviewed too.
Yes.
For the town meeting.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Ready to
that's
move
ready
on
to go.
to short-term, long-term disability? So we had a presentation a couple of weeks ago, a month ago now, on the short-term disability, and we were going to come back and have a conversation about it. The purpose of this, which was discussed a long time ago and is sort of finally coming to having a proposal on our lap, the primary benefit of it and the reason for it was to stabilize the price of and have a predictable budget for short-term disability versus having to have any one individual department negatively impacted by somebody who has a disability. So we had the presentation and we heard about what the amounts would be, that sort of thing. Where would you like to start with the discussion about that? We did hear also that PQB was not in favor of it.
And you got a note, right, from the chair this afternoon who couldn't be
Yes,
here?
I have the letter here. I can read it. It says,
Okay.
Dear Board, the PPPB met on February 25th for our monthly board meeting, and one of our discussions was about the February 9th select board meeting with a representative from the Standard Insurance Company presented a short-term disability policy proposal to the town. The select board has been researching short-term disability policies in lieu of the current short-term disability benefit currently provided by the town. The current policy is in the police and highway union contracts that have to be negotiated. There were concerns of the cost increasing as claims increase, as well as a suggestion to budget funds to replace employees if needed. To give the board some background on the disability policy, back when the PP created this policy, this was for the employees because the town did not have anything in place to assist our employees. This policy was for the employee, if needed, to take a leave of absence at 3/4 pay for medical reasons. The department head did not have to fill that position while the employee was out. They had to live with who they had, and it had always worked and was never an issue. In fact, it saved the department. Employee was out because it was still that 25% of their wage in their budget. It never costed the town a cent. At our meeting, the PPB voted to continue our current policy as is. And it was a 3-to-1 vote. Thank you for your time in this matter. Christy Ann P. Slattery, Chairman, PPPB.
Okay, so I have to, it never cost the town a cent. I'm just not sure that that's 100% accurate. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. Who would like to speak about this?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused because, I mean, we had some comparative figures over the last few years, and there's been a couple years where it's only been maybe $2,000 to $3,000. That's not been terribly much, but for at least 4 or 5 years, it's been anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000 at least that we've had to pay out for this kind of thing, and it definitely negatively impacts the budget of that department that had to incur those costs. So I'm not quite sure if we're all talking the same rationale for why we wanted to look at this in the first place.
I'm sorry.
But no, and just if I don't think it's necessarily the right thing to do to say, well, sorry, but somebody had to go out on disability in your department, so live with it and make do and make the other 3 people in your department do double duty. I mean, that's not an answer or a solution to this problem.
Yeah, it's predicated on the fact that up until apparently in the history here, that they have not hired replacement workers while someone was out for and I'm going to say long-term, up to 26 weeks, and that they've been able to get by. My concern is for the departments where there's only one person who can do that job, and that's the person who's out, and the town loses a very vital service. And I'm thinking, think of the departments that only have one senior person in there, and that's the only person capable of completing some of the important things. So, and yeah, you're right, Chris. It goes from, there were years, I think 2 years of all the figures that we saw of the 5 years. 2, it was $2,000, and in the others, it was $12,000 to almost $20,000 a year.
Okay, awesome.
So it's it's like rolling dice. You don't know how much. That's what we paid. The town did not, if they didn't hire replacement workers, the town did not lose money. And the point is supposedly saved the 25% of the salary that they didn't pay out during that time. But I don't know the wear and tear on other employees and, was there any disruption in service? I can't speak to that.
Could you just remind us, Ed, the total number of employees that would, providing that the negotiations include this, which would be a step along the way, but based on the proposal from the insurance company, the total number of employees that would benefit from this would be, was it 38? And the annual payment per year would be what?
They had listed it at 36.
36.
And depending on which of the two policies the town picked up, it looked like the cost would be somewhere between a low of 11,000 and a high of 14,000.
Okay.
And that would end up being a separate line in our budget, right? It wouldn't be parlayed out to various departments, right? I mean, it's not going to be charged back to any particular department, right?
No,
It would be
basically $11,000 to $14,000 increase to the budget.
Right, but in our general budget rather than, we're not going to divvy it out among 9 or 10 departments and say every department has got X numbers of dollars available. It's not going to do anything with that. Yeah. X numbers of dollars available.
Correct.
Yeah.
We're getting some feedback here.
Yeah.
Who's on?
I think somebody was unmuted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Well, I think that I just want to say that. You want to say something, Ed?
Well, I just wanted to say that Jen Day had updated that fiscal year cost chart for basically the departments that had utilized this since fiscal year 16, and in fiscal year 16 the cost was $18,509. In 17 it was $15,741.56, and fiscal year 18 it was $2,449.28. In 19, it was $19,821.15. In fiscal year 20, it was $2,490.33. And so far in fiscal year 21, it's, been $12,823.97.
Yeah.
And when I did, and of course, fiscal year 21 isn't over yet. There could be additional costs. It might stay where it is. When I did an average, and I thought I had left it on that sheet, but I guess I hadn't. The average of those years came out to be about $12,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to mention that, I've worked at a lot of places and 3 hospital systems, and I've never received short-term disability. So I think that to receive 26 weeks of short-term disability, whether it's paid by an insurance company or whether it's paid by the town, is actually a pretty good benefit in my mind, since I've never personally been able to benefit from that in my entire career. So I guess I'm just curious about PQB, because for me, it's a budget question. I think it's nice of a personnel policy benefit that PQB would chime in on, because, the benefit's the same. Basically, I think it's a week of sick time, and then the benefit kicks in for 26 weeks. So for me, the whole purpose of this is to stabilize a budget line item, so we're not going to have some $20,000, $30,000, charge that we're going to have to try to figure out what to do with.
Yeah.
So I guess I'd be looking to find out, it should be looked at from a financial standpoint. If the benefit is the same to the employee, I'm not sure why we're evaluating it as much from a PQB standpoint as it is from the reason for doing it in the first place was to stabilize a line item or potentially have a predictable charge for this service that we're providing as a benefit to employees. But it's still a 26 weeks, 75, potentially % reimbursement, right?
Yeah, well, the policy as this man proposed is for 60%. We said we would kick in the other 15 to keep it at 75. That's what we discussed. I mean, we didn't, and I guess the other concern they had would be having any negotiations with the union contracts, because you can see that departments represented by collective bargaining also benefited, this applies to them as well.
Yeah, frankly, I think they're the higher risk departments.
Yeah.
Personal injury.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Why would anybody, say, I don't understand why people would say no to it. If it's the exact same benefit, it's just an opportunity to start to stabilize the budget.
Yeah, well, and to stabilize it, by the way that they presented this proposal, it would stabilize that they were guaranteeing the rate for 3 years. So
yeah,
that really is I would think a big plus in terms of long-term budgeting forecast.
Right. And there's we wouldn't have to renew after 3 years if we didn't feel like it was helping us, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So what would be this in your mind, Ed? Obviously, it would have to be negotiated among the contracts, and they're all of them believe up for or on a timetable of negotiation. In terms of how long is this, like 11 to 14,000 is that's only 60%. What's the difference? Can we get more firm numbers of when is this price set until? What would be the amount exactly, and how would the negotiations with the unions impact the timetable on this proposal? Do you know?
I'd have to find out when the price proposal is good into or will change, but I can find that out. You can do the negotiations a couple of different ways. You can include it in the bargaining process. Last time we bargained with the unions, it probably took just about a year to settle. Just keep that in your back of your mind. Or the other way to go, which probably isn't as desirable as negotiating it within the contract, is to impact bargain it on its own.
Okay. Should we find, so if the 11 to 14,000, if we're talking about us chipping in additional 15%, that's about 2,000 on the high end, 2,100. Could you find out from the insurance, before we go on anymore, Matt, did you want to comment at all on this?
No,
okay.
You guys have covered it all. I'm following it. I'm generally.
Okay, well, let's just.
I just wanted to ask, excuse me, I just wanted to ask Ken, because he's also on the PBB, if he had anything that he wanted to share. Because I don't want to represent the whole discussion because I can't.
Yeah, I think it came out loud and clear that people were hanging their head on the fact that they had gone years when they really hadn't had any impact, and would rather deal with it when it occurred. I guess the problem that I have in this now, I'm looking at it right now, I don't remember getting these numbers.
Mm-hmm.
You mean the payout for the year?
Yeah, 18, 15,
right. 19,
20, yeah.
I sent them on to you when I got them, which was this week, yesterday.
Yeah, but we didn't have them at the meeting when we voted on it.
Yeah.
So So, I mean, this comes out to an average of, by rough numbers that I have here, of 11,972 or 12 grand, which is what I think you said, Ed.
Yep.
You know, to me, that paints a different scenario than what I was looking at. Francine, I don't know how you feel about it, but
Well, I mean,
I think knowing about that now, I might be in a position where I'd change my vote.
but the PQB is only recommending, and the ultimate decision is with the select board.
Oh, I understand that.
Yeah.
You asked for my opinion. Yes,
that's I
my
agree.
thought.
Yeah,
That's my thought.
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't, Ed, could you find out for us, please, how long the price, the quote, I mean, when they gave a range of 11 to 14, why such a broad range? I mean, if they already have it based on 36, oh, I see, it's based on one scenario or two.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
Two different plans.
Okay, right.
And honestly, I and the concern was in these years where it's been under $2,500, if we have experiences like that, and people were concerned about the cost of the premium to the town. And I thought of this a couple of years ago, whether or not we could ever set up a reserve out of which departments could draw as needed, and kind of, that could be our little pool of insurance, short-term disability money. Right. And you use it when you need it, and if you don't need it, the money still stays with the town.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it seems like one way or another, there needs to be a different accounting, a different system for this disability. Either it's handled internally with some allocation to a fund that's listed under the employee benefits, as opposed to it just being somewhat haphazard as far as, one department happens to have someone that has a disability, one department happens to have a replacement value for a staff, employee. I just think that the whole point of this was to have predictability.
Right. And I guess the other issue too is that we can't forget that, the insurance company is going to be paying out at 60%. And I think we're still talking about keeping the 75 out there and adding another 15, another 15% to it.
Right. Like I said, it would be on 14K, it would be 2,100.
Yeah, and especially if the union contracts are calling for 75 and you're paying 60 on the other side.
Yeah.
There's going to be some issues there too.
Right. How do you want to proceed then?
Well, no, I think, as you said, I think if we can get some more clarity just in terms of how long the offer is good for, and if we have a sense of when our union contracting negotiations are going to be coming up, and whether we have to, I don't know. I don't know that I know the pros and cons of doing a separate, if that's what I understood, Ed, a separate vote on this for the union contractors all at once, rather than waiting until they're all up for their own schedule. But like you say, last year, that took forever to get the union contract negotiated. So I don't know if we can do this without dragging it out, waiting for them. I'm trying to figure out how to make it something that could work for the town, but not have to be held up by the scheduling of union negotiations. I'm not sure if that's possible.
What do you think?
No, it would have to go through union negotiations no matter what.
Right.
Or else you'd have a separate
That's what I meant.
plan. The unions would stay on existing PPBB plan, and then everyone else moved too.
Well, then we wouldn't get the rate we got.
Yeah, you wouldn't have your 36
Right.
employees, right? So
It would be a different rate.
Right, that's true, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
if you can just start, Ed, by at least finding out for us. And the difference between 11 and 14 were the two different plans that we were provided with, but both of them are 60% covered, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have to factor in the differential of 15% that
Yeah.
in order to keep things whole and as they are,
Right.
we would have to do.
Okay.
Yep.
Why don't we add it to the agenda for next time, and you can find out, if you will, Ed, exactly when. I don't even know if the proposal, I didn't see where it said that this price was guaranteed till such and such a date. I do know that the, like Chris said, it's I think Chris said it was 3-year guaranteed
Right.
amount.
Yeah,
Yeah.
three-year rate guarantee, but I don't remember noticing a validity of the offer. And I can't remember if he said anything about it actually in the meeting when he presented it to us, to tell you the truth.
I thought he did, and I'm scrolling
He
through.
did, and I don't remember what he said, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So I'll reach out to him.
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be
Okay.
helpful. And then by
Yeah.
then, maybe we'll have a little bit of a different idea in terms of the timetable for
Yeah.
any contracts or whatever.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, I would make sure too that the PQB has all the figures on that. I mean, I'm almost as curious about what the Finance Committee says about it as I am the PQB, to be honest with you, because the benefit for the employee is the same. It's really a financial issue as much as anything. So anyway, that's my opinion about it. I just think that they should have the figures that we had to, I mean, that's part of the discussion, I think.
As I got them, I forwarded them to the PQB. And as Ken is chair of the finance, he certainly can share that with them.
Okay, well,
Yep.
let's make sure that everybody has as much information about this as possible so we can make a decision that possibly could be in effect for the next fiscal year, but we need to know more information, I think. I mean, I would just hope that there would be buy-in to the decision, that it wouldn't be, in any way, going against a recommendation. I just want to make sure that the recommendation was made with full knowledge of all the information.
Right.
All right, let's move on to new business. The first is the COVID-19 update. So there was a meeting today. Thank you, Chris, for going on my behalf with the emergency personnel in town. The good news is I think we're in the yellow as a community, which is very helpful. We're not out of the woods by any means. Still a lot of people trying to get vaccines, that's for sure. You want to update Chris and or Ed on where things are at?
No, Ed, go ahead and do it. I was listening mostly.
Okay.
Okay. That's fine. All the departments are well here. They're obviously well stacked with supplies at this point, with that delivery that came today. And actually, I get a little bit nervous about saying, okay, we're already out of this thing, but like with the police and fire, most of their staffs have now been vaccinated, and with the sunshine out today and the warm weather, they were kind of looking forward to spring and things, shall I say, loosening up a little bit, which seemed to be through what Governor Baker has been doing over the last couple of weeks. I would say that there was a considerable drop in Southampton's positive testing numbers over the last week, and those positive tests are averaged over 14 days. It had actually dropped down to I think it's like 21 or 21 point something. So yes, we finally made it back into the yellow. I am very hopeful that the next benchmark is 15 over the 14 days. So I'm hoping we'll see another decent drop this week, and we might be back in the gray area once Thursday's numbers come out. But vaccinations continue to be, shall we say, a concern, only because of, whether it's due to weather, and some of them that were to come up here to the Northeast got delayed a little bit. Whether it's to the fact that, the governor did release the vaccines to the people over the age of 65 before, that happened before President Biden announced that he wanted all the teachers vaccinated. So, the teachers got added on, which starts on March 11th. So, and we're starting to see a little bit of change because a lot of the vaccines that are coming in are being, shall we say, aimed at individuals that are getting their second shots rather than their first. So, and to be honest, the state website isn't the easiest thing to use still, even after adjustments are made. But, it does appear things are getting better at this point. I just cross my fingers that people still realize that the best thing to do is to keep wearing their masks when they're with people outside of their family, to, sanitize and clean their hands as often as possible, because as these restrictions get lessened, and there's another, should we say, benchmark coming up on March 22nd for, phase 4, which will increase some of the venue, shall we say, capacities, that, we don't want to see this have another role to come back a little bit, or any of the new variations come back a bit. But right now, I'd say, for here in Southampton place,
did we lose you? Okay. Now, just to add on one thing, I think Jerry was mentioning, I think it'll be the next thing coming down from the governor's office, right, is changing the number of people in indoor and outdoor venues. That's probably in another week or 10 days, she thought maybe was coming down, which could be as many as...
That's the March 22nd piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's going to be like maybe the 150 for outdoor venues, for example. So that would be encouraging as we move toward some level of town meeting. Mm-hmm. The other thing that came up was a question about there had been some publicity about potentially seniors that are homebound possibly getting vaccinated at home. And she said, Jerry, the director of Board of Health, said that she was checking in with Highland Valley to see how we could possibly make that happen for Southampton if we have some seniors in that position. So she was looking into that as well. And I think we talked about probably not anytime in the near future opening up town hall. We've got some things getting better in place with plexiglass and so forth, but still probably not much before, I don't know, certainly not much before June anyway, right, Ed, from what we were talking about?
Yeah, I would guess May to June would probably be about the earliest, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I did get a little bit of the MMA briefing today with the lieutenant governor, and they had one of the assistant commissioners from DESE and a few other of the secretaries there today, and they were saying what the state is allowing, and this isn't going to like the mass vaccination centers or whatever, but what they're going to be allowing the regional vaccination centers to do if they want to is to set 25% of their vaccine allocation, and they could use that to address some of the homebound issues, some of the other issues where individuals cannot get to that local regionalized site.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
Great. All right. Any questions about where we're at with COVID?
Robert looks like he has one.
Oh, hi, Robert.
Madam Chair, can I be excused from the table? I have to eat dinner. Interrupting. I have a minute or two to share with your board. I'm scheduled for open time for the public, but I can't hold out.
Is anybody is everybody fine with entertaining what Rob would like to say now?
I'm fine.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Madam Chair, Chris, Francine, Matt, I will no longer be Southampton's board member for Easthampton Media. They are having a rotation off new bylaw. Essentially, I had a 3-year term, followed by another 3-year term, and essentially in the future, that's it. I'm completing my 7th year, ready to go on to my 8th. So my last day will be June 14th, the annual meeting, Monday evening, which you're invited to, Zoom. It's been an honor and a pleasure to have fought the fight to get everybody where we are now. And it was quite a privilege. Quite a long 7 years, but I simply want to thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a new bylaw that Easthampton Media voted on as by the board that they were going to impose limits to terms.
Yeah, it was kind of a sloppy musical chair. It wasn't quite finished years ago, but they wanted to bring in new blood, new skill sets. Unfortunately, they're going to be down to a bare minimum of 4, not even a quorum, come their annual meeting for the 9 board. But new members are coming forward, so future is bright.
Have they done anything to elicit requests from Southampton in terms of membership? Have they put out the word for getting new people? I wonder if the Ad Hoc Technology Committee would be, anybody there would be interested in being on the board.
Well, it's interesting because they're having an ad hoc meeting Monday to create a PSA. So that certainly would be a good point to have them consider. Yeah. And we fought to have Southampton in the future pick a board member. So as Easthampton, excuse me, I'm getting dry mouth. So in Easthampton, the mayor can appoint someone. The council on aging can appoint someone. The school committee can appoint someone. So we have succeeded for the new proposed bylaw that Southampton in the future can appoint a board member.
What is the composition? How many Southampton board members versus Easthampton board members?
There isn't. There was hard discussions. You know, so maybe we have 6 and 3. So as it stands now, Southampton will select their own board member. Other members from Southampton can be a board member above and beyond Southampton's appointee.
So are you saying that we get 1?
Correct.
Out of how many?
Out of 9.
See, I think that's what, I mean, I probably came across as just a little frustrated with Easthampton Media, but this has been the pattern.
Yes.
So you're the only person on the board from Southampton now, Robert?
Nilda Cohen is the other member from Southampton. Years ago, I had my resignation in an envelope and would wiggle it at the president of the board. Week after week, because I needed to hear more of a commitment to Southampton. That was given. I withdrew my threatened resignation. New blood, new discussion. I don't disagree with you. Southampton may deserve 3 versus, but essentially 4 people from Southampton could show up. So it's open.
Yeah.
So Robert, if we have the ad hoc check committee meeting is tomorrow night. So if anybody were interested in being on the board, how would they go about doing that?
They would contact Jen Ramsey, the executive director, or the president of the board, Erica Ann Flood, and they certainly would be welcomed.
And so what you were saying, so suppose there were whatever 3 people interested in doing that, you're saying that we could only nominate one?
Correct. Correct.
And the others would just go as their own individual selves?
Correct. And the way it's set up, you need to attend 2 meetings and the board views the participation. And then at that 3rd meeting, the person off Zoom or in another room, they then vote whether or not to welcome the new prospective candidate or say no. And by the way, they said no to the former mayor of Easthampton, Mike, by the way.
Okay. So it hasn't been that they've excluded us. We just haven't had people present themselves.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, so they had 9 board members, and they created these new bylaws that people have to come off the board, even existing board members. They have to rotate off the board. They can't be on the board. Now they're down to 4 board members, and 1 out of the 4 is from Southampton.
Correct.
But their goal is to go back to 9?
Correct. And they may do rather quickly. They may do that in a month or 2, but nobody's predicting the future.
And there's no current guidance regarding the percentage of Southampton people relative to Easthampton?
I'm not sure where, I didn't quite...
There's nothing in their bylaws that say that certain numbers of people from Easthampton have to be on the board and certain numbers of Southampton have to be on the board.
Only the 3 appointees from Easthampton and the 1 appointee from Southampton.
So already they have 3 positions versus they get to appoint 3, we get to appoint 1, and the rest of ours have to be volunteers if they choose to go there.
Right.
Okay, can you pass along then that it would be great to have the connection of an ad hoc technology person onto the Easthampton media, and then they're going to do a public service announcement to both Easthampton and Southampton about positions on the board? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I'll bring it up tomorrow night too as food for thought for the committee. I'm not sure who on there, if no one on the existing committee, I'm sure they know of people that might be interested.
Better teamwork.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Robert, for serving on the board for that long. And I think that we need to have representation. I think that's,
absolutely.
We have a tenuous history, and I guess, I need to have trust in this particular, department. Otherwise, I just feel like every corner, it's like trying to protect the interest of our little town.
We did have a tenuous history, and many people want to forget it and let it go. And I don't disagree with that. I believe there's a lot of hope and plans. I'm not saying I support this concept personally, but that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. I think when you're the leader of an organization and you've already been there for a couple of years, it's time to stop talking about the predecessor, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And Robert, I think, whatever goes on there really should come back to the town. So we need to understand. I know you report back periodically when something's going on that would be of interest to us or what we need to do.
I always have, and I've got my hand slapped here and there because it was questioned where my loyalty is to Southampton or Easthampton media. Well, it's always been Southampton.
Well, thank you.
And always will be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, shrimp scampi ahead. Bye.
Thanks, Robert.
Good to see you.
Take care.
Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Okay, ready to move on to the CARES Act?
For the privilege.
Thank you.
Are we ready to move over to the CARES Act update? Okay, so I know, like I reported earlier, the Council on Aging has been, a lot of people have been getting making the purchases. Ed, can you speak to the fact that it's hard to get an accounting of each department's spending on CARES Act because it's going into one pot? Is there a way to separate that out? We had the original funds by department, by item, and now it's hard to get that because of they're all going into the same CARES Act pot. Can we free up any more?
That's the way that account was originally set up, and from identifier to say, okay, this is a special account where we're gonna have to pull these invoices and make accounting of them to both the state and the federal government. It works fine. I don't think that trying to make subcategories out of that at this point is going to do any of us really any good. I think it's just the fact that, okay, when those invoices get pulled, which I'm now trying to do on a biweekly basis when the warrants are run, that they get separated out into departments, that way, and we just keep track of them by department so we can go back and do that. And in fact, last week I had to do the second quarter accounting for and filing for the CARES Act, which I did, and I did pull some certain departments out and just kept them separately so I could do an accounting on those departments. But like I say, to make separate accounts for the COVID-19 and for each different department separately, I don't think the amount of will go into doing that and going forward for what we have would really be beneficial, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. If I could just add
Yeah,
something.
go ahead, Chris.
I think, we have, basically the account for the money that has been spent, which would be good to, I think, have a, whatever you've submitted it, I think we'd appreciate seeing that level of expense, because that's the question of, we need to figure out if we're going to end up leaving any money on the table. I know certain departments have not spent everything that we had approved, even though they may have bought it, it cost less, for example, or some items they chose not to spend because they didn't need it anymore. But just to say for everybody's clarity, as Ed and I put this budget together to submit in the crazy application, we had a separate budget based on, whatever fire asked for, COA, library, police. So we broke it down internally. So we have our own spreadsheet of what got okayed, and the value of that was what was approved, okay? And now to account for it at the federal and state level, it's a bigger level. We broke it down into more minutia just for our own selves to manage it and put in the application. So maybe the challenge is going back and looking at that report against the spreadsheets that we kept internally by department and saying, okay, well, whatever, we allocated $10,000 to Department X, and it looks like they've only spent $4,500, and are they going to spend the rest of it, or can we reprogram it? And what else can we reprogram it for? I mean, I think that's where we ought to be looking internally. I think most departments, and I was very pleased to hear Ed say that Randall and the generator issue has been resolved, so that's been able to get ordered, because that was one that was held up in December because of the crazy deadline. So I think just about all of the large equipment, from my understanding, I'm pretty sure has been through the process. But I think it would be good to get an idea of how much is left on the table within each department, because there may be some things that we could figure out to reprogram that still fit within those guidelines. But I just can't believe that they're not going to come back out and tell us that we have the ability to reprogram some money that we've already received. Have you heard nothing from that from the state level on that, Ed, from our MEMA contact?
We actually do, and I actually got the clarification also that I'm going to round it, the almost $13,000 that we ended up leaving on the table in December when they didn't approve some items, we are also able to just reprogram that. We do not have to go back and say, hey, we want to use it for this. Can we approve it? It's still got to be obviously a verified acceptable cost,
Right.
but we can just go ahead and reprogram.
Yeah. Well, Ed, maybe
And
this, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to suggest that if you've already done like a second quarter report or something, maybe at some point next week or whenever I could just, either do it by myself or sit with you and kind of go through the budgets that we did for each of the departments and say, okay, check it off. Yep, this has been purchased, this hasn't, whatever, and get a rough idea of where things stand at that level so that, we know where things are. Would that be helpful? I mean, I've got my spreadsheets. I can work on that.
Yeah, and keep this in the back of your mind that basically what I just filed for second quarter had to be not only received an invoice but paid by December 31st. So,
Okay.
I would say 95% of everything we ordered for phase 2 hasn't fallen into the reporting category yet.
Right.
You say, what percent? I didn't hear you.
What's that?
What percent has not been expended yet?
No, not
Well, I
reporting.
said that don't forget that, that because of the reporting
Right.
for the second quarter, it had to be paid by December 31st, not just invoiced or whatever. Probably 95% of anything that we had actually gotten approved in the phase 2 hasn't really hit the reporting criteria yet.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the expense report that we just got in this packet, and it looks, and if I added the 3 COVID lines together, it's like we've spent $300,000. So that's been what you've reported.
That might be December.
No,
too.
Right. We reported, I think it's something about $67,000 or $70,000 because you're reporting on what not only has been ordered, but what has been invoiced, not only invoiced, but paid by December 31st.
Okay.
And the flip side of that is how much of the stuff that we've already, shall we say, procured is 100% reimbursable, or that we're only getting 25% from the CARES Act because the other 75% will come from FEMA.
Okay.
Type of breakdown too. So.
Okay, but this says if we spent almost 300,000, what do we still have available to us?
Another 2.
Another 200. Okay.
But yeah. Okay. Yeah. The total amount we got was about 536,000.
Okay.
Okay. If I remember, something like that.
Well, I think that.
Yeah, I mean, we were eligible for 546. We got about 13 less than that. So yes, about 533, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that what would be helpful is that we have enough detail of the items. For example, when the Board of Health got an additional $3,000, or I should say the town of Southampton got an additional $3,000, when I asked the Board of Health how they intend, what is the budget for this money, she was looking to find out what had been expended from CARES Act, how long was case tracing going to be going. So having some detail will help then make other decisions. Mm-hmm. And we certainly all agree we don't want to leave money on the table. Yep. It might also help if there are items that may either weren't funded or can't be purchased or something. It might be helpful when capital requests come in. So I just think that it might help on a certain level of decision making, and we don't want to leave money on the table. So if you are able to get more information with Ed, we just want to make sure that we're maximizing what's available to us.
Yeah. No, I'll be glad to probably more next week. I could just sit down and maybe I can take a look at, I've seen several of the invoices, obviously, when I've signed off on the warrants. Mm-hmm. So I've kind of made some little notes to myself, but I haven't really compiled it on my master spreadsheet. But, if Regina's got the invoices kind of pulled aside somewhere that relate to COVID, I can kind of go through those and make a little spreadsheet on that to show that more clearly. But I think... I'm pretty sure just about all the big ticket items, especially the generator, had been really the biggest one hanging out there. So with that,
I know the fire department.
And most of the basic items are going to show up in reporting in this third quarter of that
right.
Yeah.
January,
right.
February payments, because,
Correct.
you know, what the school got for the remote learning, we just processed that. The laptops, you know, we had, but the payment wasn't made until what would be January. So we've got an awful lot of big ticket items, and big ticket items that are 100% reimbursable that are going to hit this next quarter's reporting.
Yeah. And I know Chief Workman had asked about, do we have an accounting yet of available funds? I know that some of the items that he requested were not funded. So I just think that, you know, we have until the end of December of this year to expend the money. But it'd be good to have this data closer to the budget time and the beginning of the next fiscal year.
Yeah. I'll see if I can work on it next week.
And don't forget, a lot of the items the fire department were looking for were actually items that didn't get approved by CARES Act too. So.
But even after that, in the last couple of COVID-19 phone calls that I've been on, you know, he did mention additional items that were COVID related. So I just want to make sure that we're not running up against a deadline.
Yeah.
And we're
Can I
not,
just,
Sure.
sorry. Maureen, can I just, can I say something?
Yeah.
Sorry. The total that we received, that we were awarded was 546,287. And the Commonwealth has dispersed $533,304 of Southampton's total.
All right. Thanks, Lucy.
Just for
that's about
FYI.
I think it was the total amount minus 13 or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Anything else on the CARES Act? All right. How about the open space and recreation plan?
Let's see. I'm going to get all these confused now. Yes, the open space and recreation plan. I'm just waiting to have a mutual get with Ken for a couple of hours to go over those edits and make sure we've got them all, and to see if there's anything missing in that, and we'll be done with it. And hopefully, I'm hoping, I asked him if he had any time available either tomorrow, Thursday, or Monday. So at the beginning of next week, that should be off our table.
Okay, is that something we finalize like at the next select board meeting and actually vote to sign off on? Or is that just a, you know, as soon as it's you two do your edits from after the public comments, it gets finished and it's done?
Right.
Okay.
And I'll send out the final edited versions to like the select board, the planning board, the conservation commission, so that and the open space and recreation plan team, so that you've all got a copy of what the final version looks like.
Great. Excellent. So we'll put it on the agenda for next time, and hopefully that'll be it. That'll be done. How about the hazard mitigation plan? We're still waiting for a couple of workshops to be scheduled. What's up with that? What's happening with that, Ed?
And we've worked out the dates for that. It's going to be March 31st and April 1st, and you should see those invitations either tomorrow or the latest on Friday.
Are those going to be full workshops, 2 on each day?
Correct. We'll do 3 and 6, and then depending on the feed we get for, you know, what people prefer or are available for, maybe we end up dropping one or something.
Okay. So Fuss and O'Neill is the company that's helping to pull together this group for a hazard mitigation plan. And the goal is to bring in a large number of stakeholders and review all the opportunities that exist in our town to be able to address climate resilience. And we had a great first meeting where we had a presentation and all kinds of overview of the project. And so the hope is that this workshop would be attended by a large number of stakeholders in town to then move towards submitting a project for the hazard mitigation plan with a lot of excellent assistance from the representatives from Fuss and O'Neill. Is there anything else you want to say about that, Ed?
No, you covered it very well.
Okay, that's the plan. I'm looking forward to it. So the 31st and April 1st. Next.
Right, it's a Wednesday and a Thursday.
Okay. Okay, the next then is, nobody has questions, employee leave practice policy due to COVID-19. We've had this a couple different times. We have the additional documents from DPH, CDC. Remind me, last time we brought it up, we wanted additional information, I think. Oh, wasn't it going to be reviewed by PQB? And they approved it?
And they did. I mentioned that in my report. Sorry, they did.
Okay, so basically allowing up to an additional 2 weeks or 80 hours based on 10 days of 40 hours work per 5-day work week. All of this will be prorated. Paid leave for employees who have been in, quote, close contact, or for fire, EMS, police, and highway department employees suspected close contact with someone who has COVID-19. I'm assuming that's a confirmed COVID-19. Employees who have been in close or suspected close contact, as listed above, shall stay out of work and be tested for COVID-19 following the CDC guidelines. If they test negative, they return to work. If they test positive, they shall stay out of work for 10 days from symptom onset or positive results per CDC guidance. Police, fire, EMS, and highway departments are allowed to follow the CDC guidance for those necessary to perform functions of critical infrastructure for a rapid return to work if it's deemed necessary. So what I'm hearing, that this policy allows people to be off and paid without using sick time. Am I right about that?
Correct.
Okay. Comments, questions?
Well, I was thinking we had asked for did we ask for like a doctor's note or something on this?
I think that was part of the last discussion, that there had to be some documentation.
Yeah, I was just trying to find it here.
Yeah, test results or a letter from doctor.
Okay, that's not on this.
What I had for.
Okay.
So that needs to be woven into the narrative there then, right?
Right.
Which I can't find right now.
Which I can add right after that second paragraph.
Yeah, okay. Okay. And then how does this get disseminated to the employees, and what do we do with it? I haven't found yet this sort where if we have a site for board of select board policies, is this where this would sit, or?
Well, this would be part of the, I think.
It would sit there, but I would basically send it out to all the employees also.
Yeah, okay.
And did we say it was retroactive to January 1st?
I believe we did.
Yeah.
Okay, that should be.
I'll add that to it, and I'll also add.
Yeah.
Yeah. It basically is in effect through December 31st, 2021.
Okay.
And do we want to put an end date on it for now for review, or just leave it open-ended? Because it is a short term.
Yeah, that's why I'd say I would put a end date on it of December 31st, 2021, which is basically now the end date for all the COVID-19 relief packages.
Okay, so so amending that to say that there needs to be a test result or provider letter, and that it's in effect from January 1, 2021 to December 31st, 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we don't want people
And
coming to work. We don't want people coming to work sick.
That letter from the doctor?
What's that?
You said provider?
Well, yeah, because a nurse practitioner.
How'd you word that? Because you didn't say letter from doctor.
Well, I
said
think that
provider?
a lot of people are seen by, you know, provider or medical provider means PA, NP, or physician. If you want to spell it out, those are the three levels of people that can actually write a note like that.
Okay, so what are the three levels?
MD, NP, and PA.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, you might as well throw DO in there.
You're right. You're right. Doctor of osteopath, you're right.
What?
That's why medical provider kind of covers anybody who has, you know, authority to do that. I think that is an accepted term in healthcare.
Okay, so from, rather than those designations, from a medical provider?
I would say physician or other medical provider. Provider kind of is the key word there.
Okay.
Do you agree, Matt? Physician or medical provider?
Well, then I have a question to you, Rainey. I mean, outside of a nurse practitioner, is a nurse a provider?
Not in the term of a, I think provider is reserved for people that are NPP, you know, like I don't think that provider is.
So I'm with you. I'm just not sure that it's defined, but yeah.
Medical a provider level is usually referred to as somebody that has primary care, prescriptive authority, you know, all that.
Yeah.
And our RN is not a provider in that sense.
Okay.
So I would say physician or other medical provider.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, any other comments on the policy?
No.
Okay. All those in favor? Oh, actually, I need a motion to approve it.
Move to approve it with those amendments that we just, about the authorized provider.
Yeah.
And the date that this is in effect.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Tishman, aye.
Roland, aye.
Fowles, aye.
Roden, aye. Thanks for pulling that together, Ed. We certainly don't want people coming to work sick or feeling coerced to do that if they're worried about that. Next is a revenue and expenditure report. Everybody got a copy of that in the packet? Let's see. What questions do people have?
Ooh, had a few. So, I had one, I guess I'll start off on, I think it was under general fund, just looking at some of the town hall things. So gas and electric for town hall, looks like it's about 8,000 overspent. So I'm hoping that this has to do with all of our crazy cow power credits that haven't been totally allocated correctly, or are we really way overspent on our town? And
no, you're absolutely correct. This is one of the feeding accounts that everything goes through before it gets disseminated out.
Okay. So that gets broken out differently eventually. All right. Because that looked a little bit
right. A journal entry will take it out.
Yeah. And then just up above that, there was also the election registration expenses. I was a little surprised to see that at $4,000 overspent.
But I think they're going to use the wage line since, or move it into the wage. Is that what happened?
Well, actually, Lucy gave me some some invoices that did not get charged directly to the COVID-19, which we're going to have to do a journal entry to move them to, which will take this dollar amount down.
Okay. Good. And then it probably all ties together, but then street lighting was the other one that attracted my attention as overspent.
Yeah, that's another one of those electrical ones that I got to dive into and move stuff around.
What about the town account and expense? Is it expenses 825% over budget? Am I reading it the right line?
Correct.
Yep.
That's because we're using a vendor for our town accountant. So when we get into May, we're going to have to basically transfer some wage funds into the expense funds to balance that off.
Okay.
And again, on the school funds, the Title I is the percent. This is just a reimbursement timing issue.
Right.
They have to spend it, then they get it.
Exactly.
All right, and then.
Correct.
Okay, and then again on the. Okay. And it comes back to not having revenue numbers, so it's hard for me to track when I look at balances that are.
Yeah, there's two pieces. There's two pieces of it: the revenue numbers, and then the reimbursable part of the timing.
Okay.
Same thing will have to happen with the Board of Health expenses. You know, we've talked about this ad infinitum, that these were the 4% from last year was taken out of expenses. They're overspent by $14.70. That money's going to have to shift from their other accounts.
Right.
Yeah.
Ed, would you be able to email us the expense and revenue report to the department heads?
Yeah, I've been trying to do that all day, so it'll go out tonight before I leave, Lucy.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see what else. Electrical inspections, 126%. Plumbing inspections, 154%. Planning board, 140%. Do you know what's up with those?
I think those are all revolving accounts. Let me see. What page, Greenie?
Page 10.
No, that's revolving, yes.
Yeah, it's revolving funds, I think, right?
Okay.
Right, so that would just be the revenue numbers getting filed against those.
Okay, all righty. And lastly, you know, we have that sidewalk town-wide, $35,000. Obviously, that's what people pay into. And at some point, doesn't have to be now, we should have some explanation about how those funds can be used.
Sure.
Okay.
Randall's already got some ideas about that.
He what?
Randall's already got some good ideas about that.
Okay, good. I'm looking forward to hearing them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Hopefully he shared that with the Finance Committee.
Yeah. And if you could also, just in the general fund on the technology equipment, the $5,400, we've got about $4,300 left. What can that go toward? Or what was that intended to buy? Technology equipment line?
Okay. I'd have to go look, so.
Okay. Because that's different than.
I know what.
Yeah.
We've got to replace the main printer in the treasurer collector's office, so that's a piece of it.
Well, shouldn't be that much, but yeah. And then we've got, but that's separate from, we had some money still within the capital funds for the server and then the other PCs, right? Which we may or may not end up using. I mean, as I was just thinking of the presentation that we got from the ad hoc tech committee last week or whenever last meeting, that to the extent that we may need to have some funds available for the Microsoft 365, we might be able to have some money in designated technology lines that could be shifted eventually. Am I reading this right or not?
Well, you can't shift any capital money.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, then it goes back to the general fund money question. That was the one in the general fund then. Yeah, okay. And just another one, just while we're in the capital fund, it seems to me that we had approved that building, multi-building, huge town scanner, rather, not a town scanner, a building scan. What do I want to say? A wide scanner.
Right.
A wide format scanner for use by many departments. It doesn't look like it's been purchased yet. So what's holding that back? That was approved like several months ago.
It's been ordered, just hasn't come yet.
Okay. Thank you. All right. And then just two from under the Community Preservation Fund. We talked about it before. We just need to correct the couple amounts for the two Concom accounts that have to be some small monies returned back to CPC. For the Manhattan Trails one and the Trails Grant Match one?
Correct.
Okay. So we just need to reverse a couple of those charges? And that, yeah, whatever.
That's not really charged. Yeah, it's basically a journal entry.
Okay, yeah.
Ed? It's Lucy. I don't have the report in front of me. Did you get the journal entry request that I asked for the dog revolving fund account that is supposed to have $8,000 in it? It has $11,302.96, which should be put back into the general fund, because that's a revolving account that I should only have $8,000 in.
Fiscal year 20 is done. It's closed out. So I'll have to take that up when the auditors come in, Lucy.
Okay. Well, it should have been moved last year, but I didn't know about it. So.
Usually the accountant would do that when they at the end and closing out the book.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Any other questions about the
we'll take care of it.
Okay.
Any further questions about the expenses? Okay, then let's talk about the FY22 budget. Going back to our bylaw, it says that on or about April 1st, the Finance Committee sends the Finance Committee's recommendations to the Select Board. Prior to that, let's see, on or about April 15th, the Select Board and Finance Committee meet jointly to discuss their respective positions, make revisions, share their perspectives, revise drafts. Should there be further changes to these drafts, the Select Board and Finance Committee must meet to discuss the changes. To provide voters with ample time to review all budget-related items prior to consideration at the town meeting, basically a week before the budget is up on the website with the Finance Committee recommendations. So we got in our packet a lot of the departments. Is there any department that, we heard about the Open Space Committee asking for some consideration. Is there any department that has not submitted a budget request to you, Ed?
There are a couple, accountant, but she's new, so I'm probably going to end up doing that particular one. The Water Enterprise Fund and the Transfer Station Fund usually come in at the end because we're still looking for some figures that go into those formulas. And I know they had some, Finance Committee had some questions for the fire chief, some follow-up questions that they were going to send along.
Okay, and we heard.
I don't think there's any other ones except basically, well, HR Hampshire Regional is their proposal along, and then it'll be Norris is working on their budget.
Okay, I think we heard Ken say that this 15th and the 17th, or Francine, one of the two, the last two dates for the Finance Committee to review departmental budgets. So, I mean, it sounds like we're fairly on track. Anybody have any questions, recommendations? Ken, would you like to add anything in terms of where the Finance Committee's at, or the timetable, or anything else?
No, I think that we've still got these remaining departments to sit with on the 15th and the 17th. Then it's getting together and doing the deed, I guess, between the 17th and if April 1st is that first date, it's going to be tight. But
yeah, it says on or about, and I think that's just
right.
General guidance. We just don't want to get too far behind on the process. But what we're hearing is that we may be, having a later town meeting anyway, but
right.
Nonetheless, we don't want to kick things down the road. How firm do we know, or when will we know firmly about revenue?
That's my weekend project. So I should have what will be my estimate, at least utilizing the governor's House 1 budget going forward for everyone to send out next week.
Okay. Then maybe next meeting we can kind of look at these dates and come up with some, ideas of general timetable in terms of town meeting, town election, Finance Committee meetings, because we know that they'll be done with their departmental work on the 15th and after the 15th and 17th, and then probably have a follow-up Finance Committee meeting. So it sounds like things are coming together. Now the hard part, right? Not that your part hasn't been hard up till now.
Yeah, the hard part is
taking 10 times more.
Making the revenues and the expenditures match.
Yeah, and that's the hard discussions. Okay, thanks again, Ken, for all your work in the committee. Any other necessary business that can't wait until the next regularly scheduled select board meeting? So I just want to say that the closing of the fiscal year, as we know, was delayed. Did happen, grateful for that, but it was later. So therefore the audit, which usually happens earlier in January, therefore also delayed. And so I just heard you say that something relative to the audit. So what is the plan for the audit, Ed?
They are doing things differently this year. From how they normally go about it due to COVID. So they actually have just sent out their requests for files for us to send to them electronically, which we will do. And then usually they'll come in and they'll spend a week here. This year, after we return the electronic files to them, they will schedule probably maybe 2 days to actually come on site and pull some physical files, some questions, go over what we've had from there. So, like I say, their process is a little bit different this year due to the pandemic.
Okay. And we have a contract with them for 3 years. Is this the second year or the third? Do you remember?
I'd have to go back and look. I believe it's the second, but
I think it is, yeah.
I'll double check, let you know.
Okay, I was just curious. I'm pretty sure that we're in the middle of it. Okay, we don't have any.
I'm pretty positive of that too, but I just want to double check.
Okay. We don't have any PCFs or PRFs, and we don't have any licenses and permits. So, Chris, you want to talk about the warrants?
Sure. We have, 3 warrants tonight. A vendor payable warrant, W2135, in the amount of $145,635.35. A payroll warrant, P2136 in the amount of $289,949.36, and a payroll deduction warrant PD 2136 in the amount of $47,463.35.
Great, thanks. And in our packet, we get the details on those numbers. Any questions about the warrants? Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
No documents for signatures, no minutes to approve. Anything on the pending items?
No, not at this point.
When Jen Ramsey mentioned about, had a conversation with the charter customer or community representative, I was going to say, hey, what about that?
That building.
What about that building?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing, I guess. Okay.
Yep.
We got to keep that greenway on the thing, and I'm glad the public safety complex is going to be coming up at the grants committee meeting.
Yep.
So
can we do something too? I know at some point, I think Ed volunteered to go out and look at that crazy boundary at the Beagle Club in Clearwater, but can somebody else maybe do that and get this off this has been sitting here for a long time. I mean, Ed doesn't need to go tromping out and look at boundaries, does he?
How much Heritage would charge go out there and actually mark that for us?
who's going to do that? Who are you going to ask to do that?
Heritage Survey.
Okay.
They did the original survey.
Okay.
Huh. Well, just so we can get it clear. I mean, I think, we ought to just be done with that issue, whatever it is here.
Yeah. And I know that property's also come up at the Open Space Committee meeting.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'd be good to get that off the list there. I think their boundary line was on our property actually.
Right.
Or
So
their fence or something.
yeah, so that we were looking to try and figure out where they needed to move their fence to, I think.
Okay. Next meeting is the 23rd. I mentioned I will be away. The one after that, I think, is the 6th and the 6th, and then the 6th, and then 2 weeks after that. You want to commit to that now, the 6th and the 20th?
Yeah, that's what Ed reported. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions about anything? Any other items? Okay, then open time for the public. The Select Board reserves a portion of its meeting for public comment and encourages participation. So would anybody like to speak from the public? Hi, Tammy.
Tammy Lunas, 298 College Highway. I have two things. You were talking about the annual town meeting. That first meeting that we were thinking, that's Mother's Day weekend. The last one's Memorial Day weekend. So there's two nice ones in there. But the other thing to think about is there's graduation that first week in June. And I know there's going to be lots of stuff happening for that, especially with everything having been so changed last year that they're trying to get outdoor stuff going and things like that. So I don't even know, the park may be full. So that's one thing. The second thing is, as the Southampton Historical Society president, I would like to reiterate that the Clark Chapman House is closed. I had to leave this meeting tonight to go respond to a police call. Alarms were going off and the lights were on, so I had to go through the whole place to verify. I really thank the two officers that stayed with me while I was going up into the attic. But there was a window open, but we reset everything. So Clark Chapman is closed, people. It's not safe to go in there.
Do you have any kind of security camera thing?
Not a camera, but we do have the alarm system.
Do you have lights that stay on?
Well, we thought they were motion lights, and then once I got there, they all went off, the outside ones, because then we were in the dark.
So they were on and they were off when you got there? No, that's too bad. That would definitely deter people if there was a light there.
If there was a motion, yeah. It's I think it's something that we might need to look into, just on that where the front door is kind of thing. But I just, it's too scary to have people walking around in there, and afraid somebody would get hurt.
So this literally just happened during this meeting? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I heard you guys talking about the short-term disability, and next thing you know, the police called, and I was coming back, and we were talking about
It was talking about street lighting, I think. That's too bad. Well, thank you for letting us know.
I'm glad I'm the key holder and I could get there that fast.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah.
All right. Well, those are good considerations in terms of the day-to-day TM. That matters a lot. I mean, we want to make sure that we stay away from these big dates, and maybe there's always very busy.
Yes, thank you.
And if we were sticking with our normal, the 4th, we should be trying to get back on track of meeting these dates.
Yeah.
And being prepared.
Yeah, I think at the next meeting, I think it would be helpful to sort of look at the calendar ahead and try to lock, at least have an idea for when the Finance Committee will meet and what's a logical time meeting. So therefore, when are the warrants due, and try to map out what that would look like so we can plan ahead.
Oh, I do have one last thing. Thank you, Ed. I really appreciate you answering my emails late and willing to talk to me on things that we needed help with. So I greatly appreciate you answering my emails at weird hours.
You're welcome. And don't be afraid to call me when I send you my cell phone number, because I'm happy to turn the Bluetooth on my way home. I got half an hour. So, and it had gotten to the point where it was probably an easier conversation than the email, but Ron filled me in a little bit about the meeting today. So
awesome. So thank you again. I appreciate being able to reach out to you and get important information. I appreciate it.
Anytime. Glad to do it.
Okay, so do we have any correspondence? I don't remember getting any.
I didn't get any.
Okay. All right. In that case, that the select board is going to go into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A, Number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Local 98, International Union of Operating Engineers, Highway. Could I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
I don't have the link.
What?
I do not have the link.
Okay. Are you able to resend that? I think it was in the same link as the this meeting.
Same email.
No, I didn't have that either. I had to go on the calendar.
Oh.
Okay. All right. Ed, are you able to send that to him? All right. We have a motion.
I'll send it to you again.
Did you also want to second the motion, Matt? Is that what you're also saying? Okay, Chris, and then Matt. We will not be returning to open session. All in favor of going into executive session?
Tish, would I?
Fowles, aye.
Groden, aye.
No.
Roland, aye. Okay, it's 9:22. How's 9:30?
Good.
Good. Thank you very much. You'll send that over to Matt.
9:35, because I got to run downstairs and send to Matt.
All right, so what are you saying, 9:35? I have it right here. I can forward it to him. I'll forward it to him.
Okay.
All right. See you in a minute.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
Night.